Oh, come on, work. Okay, so the European Super League has, well, been announced over the weekend. I've waited a few days before I decided to do a live stream on it. I was going to wait till tomorrow to do an anniversary live stream of the channel. However, the last 48 hours have been very interesting, to say the least. We can focus on the clubs that have publicly signed up and signed a letter of intent, a document of intent to form this Super League as early as August. And we can discuss all the various points. Obviously, the 6 English clubs involved, I'm going to rip an absolute arsehole out of all 6 of them, because it's easy to do. Tottenham haven't won the league since 1961. They've never won a European trophy, yet they're in the Big 6. They are the most indebted club in Europe. Arsenal have not been league champions for a very long time and haven't won a European trophy since, I think, or been in the European final since 2006. Man United haven't won a league trophy for 7-8 seasons now. Man City only got wealthy a decade or so ago, and it took them a few years to actually win any silverware. They haven't won a Champions League either. Liverpool obviously won the Champions League, season before last. Couldn't win the league title for 30 years. And, then you got Chelsea. Before Abramovich came along, they'd won a couple of trophies, hadn't been overly successful, solid side. So what we're seeing here is pure greed. There's a reason why we're in this situation. Yes, it is organised chaos. Absolutely. There's no denying that. The reaction from UEFA and FIFA has been firmer than I actually expected. Now, I'm not a fan of FIFA. I'm not a fan of UEFA. And there needs to be massive reform of those organisations. Absolutely. I'm not a fan of the new Champions League format that's coming in a few seasons' time. I think that's part of the problem. But the other 14 clubs in the Premier League, and I'm going to focus on the Premier League at the moment, are meeting today. They're having an emergency meeting. They could vote to actually throw out the 6 clubs that have signed up. Of course, we've got the League Cup final this weekend, Spurs versus Man City. They could be thrown out of that competition, and therefore, that puts that into doubt. The fact that when managers of the clubs that are involved have been interviewed, they said they weren't informed of the decision to announce. That's another thing. And yes, you can argue that Spurs have only got 2 league titles to their name, and they haven't won the league for 60 years, 50 years, something like that. And Leeds do have more European silverware. Tottenham aren't even in the top 8 for successful clubs in England for trophies won. The last trophy they won was the League Cup in 2008. They've not won anything since before the Europa League was formed out of the old UEFA Cup. So Tottenham being part of the Big 6 is only on revenue. They've got the biggest debt in Europe, and they've got a toilet bowl of a stadium. And it is rumoured. I can actually the Intercity Fairs Cup, which is actually the Cup Winners' Cup, which is what it became. The Fairs Cup was eventually became the Intertoto and the Cup Winners' Cup. It sort of merged off. But yes, you can class that. The Fairs Cup became Intertoto, which then became partly the qualification for Europe for the main tournaments in UEFA Cup, now the Europa League and the Champions League. And also you had the old Cup Winners' Cup. Tottenham never won that either. Tottenham have got very few trophies to their name. The fan response has been visceral. And the players, there are current and ex-players of high standing in the game who have come out against this. You've got ex and current managers who have come out against this. And I could just go on the BBC Sport website and another statement's probably been released by another manager or another club. We'll see what happens with the emergency general meeting of the 14 other clubs in the Premier League this afternoon. that'll be very interesting to see what they decide to do, because technically all you need is a majority decision to get any change over the line, 2/3 majority, which they have. They could vote to expel these 6 clubs from the Premier League with immediate effect. They could kick them out. And Florentino Perez, the president of Real Madrid, has come out and stated that they plan as early as this August. UEFA have said, well, players who play for these clubs could be banned from playing at this summer's Euros. Interesting to note, players like Messi are free agents in the summer. Also, it's been said that any player who plays for this club will be barred from the transfer market. Oh, Real Madrid, they've overextended themselves for years. Same, Man United's got huge debts. Tottenham have got huge. They've all got huge debts. PSG decided not to take up the offer to be one of the 15 teams, because there's going to be 15 founded teams. The 2 German clubs are fan-owned and have fans on the board, and they elect presidents. PSG are not the biggest club in France. Marseille have the biggest fan base. Montpellier the second biggest fan base, and then Lyon. And PSG are not overly popular themselves, and no broadcaster has been announced for this European Super League. So without a broadcast partner, it's going to be very hard to sell the product. Also, what is very interesting to note is that all these clubs are in breach of their league contracts. So when you get promoted or relegated from a league, you agree to the league's rules and terms, and the Premier League rules and terms state you cannot participate in a non-UEFA or FIFA sanctioned competition. The Premier League is a UEFA sanctioned competition. The World Club Challenge, for example, when you win the Champions League, is a FIFA sanctioned competition. The Champions League, Europa League, UEFA sanctioned competition. I hope that the PFA in this country and the players' unions across Europe ballot their members, because this is what a trade union is about. As an employee, you have to be informed well before any change takes place of your employer's actions to change policy. It has to be on the table. And from what we've heard from some of the managers and players at the clubs concerned, is that they were not informed about any potential European Super League. The only club that has come out and stated on the management side is Andrea Pirlo at Juventus, saying that we were fully informed of the decision by Agnelli, the owner, to enter this European Super League. That's the only club that has actually admitted that they actually informed their playing group and their managerial group that they were going to enter this competition. Can you imagine the Euros without Cristiano Ronaldo? Can you imagine the World Cup without Messi? Right now, a huge proportion of the England squad is in these 6 clubs that have signed up to this European Super League. You've got John Stones, Harry Maguire, Henderson in goal, could be part of the squad. Luke Shaw's having a great season. Rashford, Greenwood is in and around the England squad. Jordan Henderson, the Liverpool captain. Harry Kane, England captain and Tottenham captain. You could lose 2/3 of the England squad. How's it going? It's going all right. I mean, tomorrow is the channel's anniversary of 4 years making videos. I was going to do a live stream tomorrow, but this, I think, takes precedence. I've waited 48 hours for the dust to settle a little bit, and it really hasn't, because UEFA have come out, FIFA have come out, the Premier League are having a meeting, politicians are involved, the fans, supporters associations involved. When you've got ex-players of the standing, and I'm not a big fan of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, but they've come out and said it's a disgrace. When you've got players like Ian Wright, ex-players like Ian Wright, a club legend at Arsenal, having his say, Gary Lineker, ex-Tottenham player, having his say, and these are players. Well, the reason why these clubs have signed up to this is with the deal that JP Morgan is planning, they don't need fans. But here's the thing. If you are trying to sell a product to a wider audience, with no fans in attendance, look how crap the Premier League, the Championship, the Champions League, the Europa League, the League One, League Two, look how crap football has been with no fans in attendance. Fans are crucial to the atmosphere and crucial to the product. And I say this on the point of a sports fan. I'm a rugby league fan. I'm an ice hockey fan. With no fans in attendance or limited capacity, it is a lesser product to sell to a global or national audience. And I raise comparisons with other sports. People go, oh, it's rugby league. I mean, they tried this in Australia in the 90s. It took years of legal challenges, and it only lasted one season with the rival Super League. And clubs went out of business. Clubs went bust, and the rugby league in Australia was on its financial knees, and clubs went out of business. People lost their jobs. Yeah, I agree. I think the stances that have been taken so far, I mean, the PFA is crucial in this, and the players' unions across Europe are crucial in this. I think they need to ballot their members on strike action. And under employment law, what these clubs have done is actually breaking the law. They're in breach of their contracts, their industrial contracts that they have signed. They are in breach of them. And at which point that leads to lawsuits. So if Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, is saying we want to start by August, it's not going to happen. There'll be a European court challenge, there'll be domestic legal challenges. And if you look at France, Italy, or France, PSG have decided not to be involved. PSG have never won the Champions League. Marseille have. So this is about the wealthiest clubs. There's meant to be 15 founder clubs. We've got 12 on the table. 6 of them are English. 3 are Italian. 3 are Spanish. The 2 German clubs they wanted to be founder members have sided with the Bundesliga because of part fan ownership, basically, and fans being on the board. I feel sorry for the players and managers, but some players, Ander Herrera, I think, is one of the few players at a club right now that is involved with the Super League, has said he's against it. There's a player who's playing for Atalanta, who did very well in last season's Champions League and are doing very well in Italian Serie A. One of the underdog stories. That's a feel-good story. It's like a Leicester City. It's like, a Wigan Athletic winning the FA Cup. If this was to go ahead, those feel-good stories don't exist. Because if they manage to go ahead and stay in their domestic league competitions, they have too much money. They can dominate the transfer market. They will be making more money than financial fair play doesn't work. We know UEFA and FIFA have massive problems. We know this. I'm not a fan of those organisations. They need massive, massive reform. They need bodies to regulate them that aren't football based. We know this. We know they need to reform, and I think the Champions League format changes coming in a few seasons' time they don't work. From a fan's point of view, I'd rather straight knockouts, bring back the Cup Winners' Cup. Don't bring in this third tier competition. Bring back the Cup Winners' Cup. It revalues those competitions on the continent and here for domestic cups. Bring back champions only going the Champions League, runners up going Europa League, for example, and the Cup winners, whoever they may be, go into the Cup Winners' Cup, which could mean Man City, for example, win the League Cup, they win the Premier League, and they're playing in 2 competitions. That's fine. That used to be the case until 1999. What we've seen in the 90s, and this is where we've ended up in this position, was UEFA reformatted the European Cup, which is the Champions League. They reformatted the UEFA Cup to become the Europa League and brought in a group stage, which used to be straight knockout tournament over several phases. And they got rid of the Intertoto Cup and they got rid of the Cup Winners' Cup, which unfortunately I think has had a negative impact upon some of the smaller European nations where you would have some great ties. You would have some really interesting clubs who would not normally have a chance in Europe under the current rules playing in Europe. You would have some great away ties. You would have some great knockout football, straight knockouts, home and away legs. Brilliant. Norwich City have played, in Europe. Oxford United, had your English football clubs been allowed to play in Europe at the time, would have played in the Cup Winners' Cup because they won the League Cup in 1990. Unfortunately, because of Hazel, English clubs were still prohibited from participating in Europe at that time. The VAR thing is another thing altogether. We can discuss that. That needs reform, and that is on FIFA. That is on the domestic FAs. That's on UEFA. 2018, the World Cup in Russia, they had it on the right track. They've gone the wrong way. That's a different debate altogether. You can debate that to death. You can debate that to death with VAR. This is not part of the argument. The 6 Premier League clubs, rumour has it that Jose Mourinho was sacked because he refused to take the players onto the training paddock and was basically protesting about, A, they had limited time and knowledge of this proposal, and he's not in favour of it. Jurgen Klopp has said in his press conference, I believe yesterday, he's against it. They haven't been informed. They've not been consulted. And look at the fan response. Look at the fan response. The fan response tells you all you need to know. that it's not going to work because fans will boycott. You cannot sell a product with empty stadiums. Pandemic aside, can you imagine the Westfalenstadion at Dortmund, the main stand? This is a stadium that sits 90,000 people. Can you imagine the main stand at the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund being empty? Can you imagine the Kop at Anfield being empty? Pandemic excluded. Can you imagine the Stretford end at Man United being empty? Can you imagine the Shed at Chelsea being empty? The Etihad is always empty, but you get what I'm saying. Can you imagine these stadiums with mass boycotts? Because these big stands, these like the Kop at Anfield, the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund, the Stretford end, mostly season ticket holders, and lifelong fans. Can you imagine them boycott and refusing to renew their season tickets? Because that is what's going to happen. They're saying, "Oh, we've lost revenue without fans in attendance." You risk losing more when fans switch off. And there are other sports that I would say to these fans of these clubs to support and view. And yes, VAR can work if done right. Absolutely. You have to reword some of the laws. The indirect free kick for accidental handball and the goalkeeper picking up a back pass is still a rule. Referees just are too scared to enforce it. But that's a different topic, and we can cover that on a separate live stream about VAR. They do view us as customers. What the pandemic has shown is how overextended and how badly governed football finances are and how much debt is in the game. The only reason why these clubs have got away with it for so long is fans have been turning up and buying the merchandise, buying the tickets, and being ripped off at the turnstile. Oh yeah, Klopp has always come out and stated he's against any proposal to do this. Mourinho was the first one to go, and it is believed that he took an actual protest at the training ground, refusing to take training with the Tottenham squad. It's got nothing to do with performances on the field. Nothing. The fact that Tottenham won't win a trophy yet again is another thing, but it's nothing to do with what's happened on the field. It's him basically refusing to take training and saying, "No, we're not doing this." That's how he's been sacked. That's the reports coming out of various mainstream journalists are saying that's the reason why he's gone. Yes, Klopp is in a difficult position. Tuchel, his statement is basically saying we're against it, but not actually, the players and the managers are the ones facing the media right now because not a single owner has come out, apart from Perez at Real Madrid, and basically explained their actions. And 3 of the 6 UK English clubs are American-owned. JP Morgan Chase is one of the investment banks that led to the financial crash in 2008. So there you go. I mean, look, UEFA and FIFA and the FA and the Premier League and all that, we can argue about the flaws of these organisations, of which there are many. They do need to reform. But I do hope they stand firm. I do hope they dig their heels in. And from the statements given out, it looks like players will be banned from playing for their countries from this point onwards. And it looks like clubs could be ejected from leagues. Now, you look at the Italian clubs that are involved in this. Juventus, AC and Inter Milan. Juventus and AC Milan were found guilty of match fixing in 2006. Juventus were thrown out of Serie A and had to go, I think, down to Serie B. AC Milan were docked points. Juventus have recovered. AC Milan, not so much. What players and managers are stuck on what to do? Do they refuse to play? This is where the League Managers Association in England and the PFA in England and the similar organisations in the European leagues concerned need to ballot their members. How can it happen? Well, they're going to find some difficulties because some of these players are already debating about renewing their contracts and extending their contracts. What UEFA have stated is that players playing for these clubs they're banned from the transfer market. Now, Messi, for example, at Barcelona is a free agent at the end of the summer. His contract winds down. We have heard nothing on Messi extending at Barcelona. He wanted to leave at the end of last season. We have heard no news from the Messi camp on any potential any potential contract extension or renewal, because he obviously wants to play for Argentina one more time. On the side of Neymar and Mbappe, they've just signed contract extensions at PSG. How it can happen, I think it's going to face a lot of legal challenges because actually the Premier League, the FA, away from FIFA, these clubs have signed contractual agreements to play in the Champions League, Europa League, domestic leagues, and they're technically in breach of them, which is a breach of contract, which is a massive, massive, massive legal shit show, is the best way to describe that. We'll have to see what the League Managers Association and the PFA come out with, but I would expect some kind of trade union action. That's labour unrest. The amount of players and managers and coaches that have come out against this, yes, they're not in the Big Six. Who anointed these Big Six? It's just because of revenue. It's the only thing. 22 years ago, Newcastle would have been classed as the Big Six, as with the Blackburn. Yeah, things change. Things change. Newcastle were the sixth wealthiest club in Europe and the second wealthiest club in the UK in 1999 at that valuation just before the millennium. They're not now, but think of this. Man City nearly went down to the old Division 4 in 20 odd years ago. 20 years ago. They were nearly relegated to Division 4. The only reason why Man City are in the position they are now, and the same with Chelsea, because they were on the verge of bankruptcy when Abramovich bought them, is foreign ownership money. Tottenham's owner is a tax exile who refuses to pay tax in the UK. You can class them as foreign owned. And the way they've handled Mourinho is a joke. The Norwegian manager has stated that his statement's brilliant, but he states Arsenal and Tottenham aren't even in the top 20 or 30 European clubs right now. We know Barcelona got money problems. We know Real Madrid have got money problems. Atletico, I'm really surprised they've signed up for this. They're in a very healthy position right now. They don't have a lot of debt, actually. I am very surprised at Atletico with how they're going in the league, in La Liga, with Simeone, being one of the longest served managers in European football. I think, this is what's coming out is Mourinho basically refused to take the players training on Monday, and the Tottenham board sacked him. He hasn't released a statement yet. He hasn't been interviewed yet. That will be interesting what he actually says is the reason for his dismissal and why. They've got a cup final this weekend, which may not go ahead. The Football League, which is the governing body of the League Cup, may throw both City and Spurs out. They are very exciting. They are hilarious. My neighbour Adam is a United fan. I mean, his main club is Stockport County, but he's a United fan. I'm not. He wants the world to burn. He actually wants United to suffer. I mean, the fact that Joel Glazer is now the assistant commissioner of the Super League under Perez, not good. Not a good look. Ed Woodward and Glazer have resigned from the European Club Association in the last 48 hours, which tells you something. They've gone. The fan groups are having discussions with various national governments. And the German and the French clubs not joining this. So PSG, Dortmund, and Munich. They were the other three clubs that they wanted to be the 15 founder clubs. They've gone no. And PSG isn't the biggest club in France. I have to admit, Mourinho, he is Marmite, Vegemite. You love him or hate him. I'm not a fan of Mourinho, but he does get results. These things have happened in sports. I'm going to talk about the NRL. In 1997 was the peak of the Super League war. Packer, who did the rival cricket Super League as well, which also failed, ironically, and cost a lot of money, pitched an idea in the early 90s to set up a rival league to what was the New South Wales Rugby League at the time, which became the NRL in 1998. Now, basically, there was, I think, 3 years of legal challenges before the Super League took place. And what transpired was clubs went out of business, non-players lost their players lost their contracts. I mean, City are their own worst enemy, but from reports coming out of Chelsea and City, this is via the mainstream media, this is not just fans speak and rumour, is they're starting to waver on this European Super League. They're starting to really go. To be fair, they don't actually need the money because they've got the two wealthiest owners in the Premier League. They're starting to reconsider their position. The fact is that City went 36 years without a trophy. Spurs have not won the league since 1961. The last trophy they won was the League Cup in 2008. I don't know what else to say about this. the only reason why these big six have self-anointed themselves is on revenue. Revenue, not wealth, revenue, what they bring in. They all have debt. If Chelsea and Man City were standalone clubs, they would be bankrupt. Man United is laced with debt. Liverpool have been so inconsistent over the last 30 years. Yes, they won the Champions League in there a couple of times. Yes, they won what was the UEFA Cup, Europa League. They've won silverware. They've won the FA Cup. They've won the League Cup. They've won a lot of silverware in the last 30 years. They only won the league once in 30 years. Yeah, we know it's United and Real Madrid, two of the most hated clubs on the continent. Real Madrid are not a very popular club. Rumor is one thing. We know Florentino Perez and Joel Glazer are two people heavily involved with coming up with this idea. Real Madrid have lost 400 million in the last 12 months. They're still a global brand, but they've lost a lot of money. Ander Herrera is, I think he's playing for one of the three Spanish clubs. He's come out and stated he's against it. Oh, God, look, Arsenal and Tottenham are a shambles right now in the league. They're not even in the top six. They're not even in the top six. And if we were to expel these six clubs from English football, West Ham win the Premier League and Leicester come second. Let that sink in, because they're actually competing for European places right now, and Leicester could quite easily win the FA Cup against Chelsea, because I think they actually are the better side. It's just an interesting point. Wenger I appreciate Wenger's opinion, and he actually stated about 10 years ago that this was a possibility. Then we've had multiple discussions about a European Super League for 30 years, and every time UEFA has made some concessions, and the clubs have made some concessions. AC Milan haven't been relevant in Europe for a decade. AC Milan have been struggling in Italian football for the best part of a decade. Oh, look, the NRL, that led to legal challenges. Clubs went out of business. The game, rugby league in Australia is the second most popular sport after AFL. It's still recovering 23 years later. What could be a side effect is salary caps. Salary caps will have to be on the table. And European football is allergic to salary caps. Even the major American sports like the NHL, NFL, NBA have salary caps. The only one that doesn't is Major League Baseball. Even Major League Soccer has salary caps, and they could actually benefit from this European Super League because of these players being barred if they play for one of these clubs. A lot of quality European talent could go to America to play. If they're frozen out the European transfer market, they could go to America to play. And the MLS could massively benefit from a Messi playing over there, a Ronaldo playing over there. That could boost their product massively. But when David Beckham has come out and said he's against this, as a team owner in the MLS, saying this is really this could set it back more than that. Clubs go out of business. Maybe we could do with it. F1's dying its own death. F1's got its own problems. F1's had problems for years. Viewership. And what Perez has said, 40% or something of youth are not interested in football anymore. Yeah, because we can't afford it. I haven't been to a football league match of any Premier. I've been to Premier League games. I've been to Championship games. The old Division 1, the old Division 2. I haven't been to a football match since, I think, 2004, 2005. I've been to other sports since then. I've watched other sports since then. It's far more entertaining when you know if you have got a sealed league for financial reasons. So other sports like ice hockey and rugby league and rugby union, they make less revenue. They have to bring in salary caps or spending caps. And some of these, especially ice hockey, which is a very expensive sport to run, you can't afford to have promotion relegation. It doesn't really work unless you've got a very good solid structure from top to bottom. So Sweden, I believe, and the Czech Republic have a promotion relegation system. I think France do. Partly because league teams at the lower level also can compete at the upper level because the financial rules are in place to prevent overspend, make it more sustainable. Football isn't sustainable as it is. The pandemic has highlighted all the flaws in football as it currently stands. This is what's exposed these big clubs for their massive overspending. Is it till they tell you smoking kills? Look, I'm a bin man. I'm more like to get run over. Smoking does kill my wallet. England, no, rugby union and rugby league also have a pyramid structure as well. Um, it, it, England, no, there is a pyramid structure. Rugby union, rugby league also have a sort of a pyramid structure with promotion relegation. There are issues with rugby union, rugby league right now, and there are talks of ring fencing the Super League and the Premiership, which aren't going down well with fans. Although there's a bit more response for the financial aspect, but they have salary caps. But football doesn't have a salary cap, and this is part of the problem. Football does not have a salary cap, and this is why these clubs have been exposed for their reckless overspend and poor financial management. And some of the clubs listed as being part of the Super League have also been investigated for corruption claims as well. So, and have been found guilty of match fixing in Italy, for example. It is utterly bizarre to me. True, it is only one up, one down, but there is still a pyramid system. There's still promotion, relegation, and union and league in this country. So that still takes place. And, that's the European sporting culture, is competitiveness at the top and the bottom. And if this Super League was to go ahead, you don't get your Leicester Cities. You don't get your Wigan Athletics and Portsmouth winning the FA Cup because they cannot financially compete to put a same team on the field. I would say there's more stability in rugby. Rugby union and rugby league have got massive financial problems, hence why they have salary caps. You just got to look at the Pro 14 for the money issues there, especially in Wales. And there are other issues in rugby as well, but that's I can also use the closed shop example. North America, American football. They've tried with XFL twice. The CFL, which is a rival league in Canada, expanded into the US 20 years ago, nearly killed the league. The AAF, rival leagues to the NFL have failed. They're going against the established TV contracts, the established audience, the established order, and they fail. The Super League in Australia, for example, with the NRL, failed. What else? NHL with the WHA. WHA folded after a few seasons. Only 4 teams survived that. Most 4 franchises are still playing in the NHL now. In the Oilers, the Coyotes, who were the original Winnipeg Jets. The Hartford Whalers are now the Carolina Hurricanes. And who was the other team? And the Quebec Nordics became the Colorado Avalanche. 3 out of those 4 teams have won Stanley Cups. But the WHA tried. They overspent money. They were throwing money around. They were giving players contracts worth millions, whereas the NHL was saying, "We're going to offer you 20,000 a year." And back in the 70s, 20 grand a year in the 70s was a lot of money. In the 80s, that's a lot of money to a pro athlete at the time. And Sanderson, who was a Boston Bruins defenseman, alongside Bobby Orr, was offered the first $1 million contract in professional sports. He was the highest paid sportsman for a year. They couldn't afford it. They tried to entice it with gimmicks, and it went wrong. Teams went bust. Teams relocated, and out of what was the WHA in the 70s, only 4 teams still exist, and only one of them in their original location. So I'm even North America, where they've tried this franchise model and set up rival leagues, it has failed. Major League Baseball was once 2 separate leagues. They merged together to avoid competing with each other. Major League Soccer is not the first attempt at a top flight US football or soccer league. All the others have failed because there were rival leagues all over the place. It doesn't work. Packer, before he came up with the Super League concept in Australian Rugby League, came up with the Cricket All Stars League, or wherever it was. That also didn't succeed. And the fact that no broadcaster has been announced yet is and they want to start in what 4 or 5 months' time. Takes years to work out television deals in normal times. In the pandemic, yes, we've seen some deals arranged pretty quick, but it takes years to sort out a broadcast partner for a 5-10 year period. They want this to go on for 30 years. And the fact that clubs like Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, who've got pedigree in the Champions League and the other European competitions, PSG PSG have only appeared in one European Cup final, by the way, and a couple of Cup Winners' Cup finals which they've won. They've decided to backtrack on joining this European Super League format. Tells you all you need to know. They wanted 15 founder clubs. They've only got 12. The thing is, Everton and Sevilla have massive fan bases. They do. And Everton in the 80s, if this idea was around the 80s, Everton would be definitely in there. Everton haven't won a trophy since 1995. Sevilla, well, they dominate the Europa League, can't compete in the Champions League. It doesn't work. Look, the fan response, the ex-players of high standing in the game, both in England and abroad, managers, high standing in the game, both in England and abroad, have gone. The Super League format idea has been mooted for 30 years. They've tried for 30 years. But we'll see what happens with the emergency meeting of the other 14 Premier League clubs. We understand. Well, the French football as a league, the French top flight is not the most popular league in France. Rugby union, rugby league, and ice hockey actually get more fans. Cycling is a massive sport in France. It's religious in France. French football doesn't have a great TV deal because that collapsed during COVID, and is not the most popular sport in France. PSG is not the biggest fan base. I'm going to reiterate this. Marseille, Montpellier, and Lyon have more registered season ticket holders and members. They're not innocent, but they've also Sky and Amazon Prime have come out and said we are not party to any talks. Bearing in mind that Amazon does show, I think, Italian and German league games and some Champions League games as well of the German and Italian clubs, and obviously select fixtures in English football. They have a small stake in the pie. Sky have come out; they're the biggest broadcaster across Europe when it comes to television deals on the various Sky franchises around Europe, including Sky B over here in the UK. They're not party to the discussions. Well, look, when you have 99, I think 79% of fans polled by YouGov. So there's only about just under 2,000 fans were polled. 79% were against it. That is different to the polling done before Christmas, when more younger fans were in favour of the Super League. That has now turned massively. It's interesting where we stand. We're waiting to hear from the new Tottenham interim manager, Mason, about his viewpoint on it. What happened with Mourinho, because no, Murdoch, I don't think so. With all the negative press that his media group has had over the last decade, I can't see them touching this. I really can't. If Sky, which is now owned by Comcast, is not involved, then that tells them. Yeah, French football doesn't have the depth that the other European leagues do in the league structure, and French football is not the most popular sport going. Its TV deal is not as good as rugby. Rugby union and rugby league have better TV deals. Ice hockey has a better national media coverage. The French league structure in ice hockey is actually very, very strong, and they have some. I think they've got a couple of players playing for NHL teams. French football, there's a reason why their best players don't play in France. Most of the best French players play outside of France, and there is a reason for that. The French league, while they have got some great history in French football, more than PSG, some great clubs in football I could list off. The fan base in France is for sport is a far more varied sporting culture than let's say here, where football is the dominant sport, or in Spain, um, or Italy, for example. Germany is the Bundesliga is not as popular as people believe. It is the main sport. Just ice hockey comes a very close second. So when you're looking at this on a European standpoint, yeah, English football. Most people go football first. Other sports, I don't watch that. That's why the other sports have weaker TV deals, smaller crowds, less sponsorship. The thing is, there are some really good team sports out there if you like your team sport. There's some great individual sports out there if you like your motorsport or your boxing, things like that. But football is the big money maker for the TV companies here. That's why the Premier League exists. That's why we have the most professional clubs in the Football League structure and the non-league as well. We have the most player depth, the most registered players. I think other than Brazil, I think England has the most registered football players at any level. What you're seeing is there's a disconnect between fans and the sport anyway. The cost of football has been rightly in the headlines for a long period of time of it as a debate point. And there's a reason why I haven't seen my team play for 16, 17 years. I would love to go see Reading Blackburn at the Medeski. It still would cost me an arm and a leg just to get there. And I live on the rail line to Reading. I then have to get a bus or a taxi to the Medeski, which costs a fortune on a weekend, by the way. Then I have to get in the ground. Then I've got to find some food, some drink. It would cost me over 100, 150 quid for the day for a championship game. And that's not including my ticket. That's all costs. And then I've got to get back. So let's say it's a 3 o'clock kickoff. I have to leave mine by no later than 12 because away fans are segregated at the station at the Three Guineas pub in Reading. So I'll get the train, obviously, to Reading, get off the train, and I'll be put in the away section and I'll be segregated in the Three Guineas pub. And then we get escorted to the ground, which is a very long walk from the centre of Reading to the Medeski. It's quite a distance. Same thing for Brentford as well. If I was to go see Blackburn play against Brentford, again, wearing this, I'm going to get grabbed by the old bill and told you have to go here. The situation is, as things currently stand, it's expensive to go to football. The average age of a fan going to games in the UK, we're not including across the continent, is about 45. They've done a poll, they've done a survey. The average age of a fan, they're mostly male, and their average income is over 35,000 a year, sometimes 40,000 a year, depending if you're in London or not. So you've got to have a higher disposable income and you're middle aged. Young people are being priced out. Minorities are being priced out because some minority groups, be it women or those from minority backgrounds, are being priced out because generally they command lower salaries. So surveys have been done, studies have been done for years about the average disposable income of a football fan, the average age of football fans. And for the most part, they found out the average age is 45, male, and a higher than average disposable income. Fans are being priced out. The TV packages you have to pay for is pricing fans out. What have you missed? Do I think the Super League, you missed a fair bit. I've discussed other attempts at setting up rival leagues and other sports and how they failed and the cost to that and teams going out of business, people losing their jobs. We're talking about the match day attendance. So the stewards, ticket office, the club shop, administrators in the club, even the tea lady who goes around the dressing room and gives out, cups of tea to the players at the training ground. This has happened before. Do I think there's any merit? No, there is no merit. It devalues every domestic competition. It devalues the current cup competitions in Europe and domestically. And it actually harms the grassroots, doesn't help it, because you're taking money out the game and enclosing it behind 12 to 20 teams. They want to have a 20-team Super League starting in August. They can't even get 15 foundation teams, or what their plan is. Um, oh, look, the most egregious part of it, they haven't specified who the TV or media partners are going to be. They haven't specified what they're going to charge for tickets, which are already extortionate if you actually look at some of the match day tickets for some of these clubs. On average, they are vilely overpriced. As I've mentioned, if I want to go see, let's say, Reading Blackburn at Badesky or Reading Brentford, they're the two clubs, maybe Reading Watford, Blackburn Watford, sorry, as an away fan. It's a lot of money. If I want to get to Ewood Park, I would have to give up a whole weekend. I'd have to put the Friday off from work and the Monday for a Saturday game. I would have to stay at Ewood Park Hotel, and I would probably have to travel back on the Monday morning, not a Sunday because of engineering works. It would cost me it would cost me like half a month's wages to go to Ewood Park for a weekend. It honestly would cost me a third to half a month of my wage. I'm priced out automatically, and my club is in the Championship. Imagine what it's like for Premier League fans when you let's say, what's the worst away day in football? Let's say Carlisle in the FA Cup. Let's say it's an FA Cup game. Let's say Carlisle have been drawn away against Brighton. Or Southampton. That is one of the longest away days in English football. Or Newcastle against Exeter. St James's Park to St James's Park, right? Hypothetically, let's say one of those smaller clubs gets through to the third round. They're drawn against the Premier League team, and you've got to do that away day. That's a minimum of 6 hours travel, possibly 8. You would have to leave at silly o'clock, like 3 o'clock in the morning, just to make the game, especially if it's a lunchtime kickoff for TV. If it's on a Sunday, have fun getting public transport. You know, you've got to factor all this in. Accommodation, all sorts. The BLM ban, that's political. That's a different issue altogether. We've already got the kick it out campaigns, both UEFA's campaign against racism, domestic league campaigns against racism across Europe. That's a different issue altogether. But yes, they are trying to hide behind virtual signaling. Finding it quite cheap in Lancashire. Yeah, Lancashire is quite cheap compared to the southeast where I live. It still would be cheaper if I was a local Blackburn fan living in Blackburn to go to a game than not. I understand that. But inflation and travel costs have massively inflated since 2003. I mean, yeah, accommodation and prices for food and drink are a lot cheaper in the north than the south of England. Same in Scotland, there's regional variation. So outside of Glasgow and Edinburgh, things are cheaper. But you're going back 18 years. The economic climate has changed massively. If we're looking at just before the pandemic, even you going from Scotland to Lancashire to watch a game. Let's say, hypothetically, Celtic are playing Man City in the Champions League and it's a midweek game. You would have to book 2 days off. You would have to book the Wednesday off or the Tuesday, and you'd have to book the following Thursday off to get home. There's no way of getting home the same night. Not with public transport. If you don't drive, and if you do drive, you're going to be knackered. You're going to get in at early hours in the morning. You're going to have to recover because there's no way you're going to do a 9 to 5 job or any kind of job the following day. You're going to be dead on your feet. You've got to take time off work. Some of that could be unpaid holiday, so you actually lose out. You could miss out on overtime, and the amount of money you've got, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And every time I've seen Blackburn play, they've won. So there you go. That's something for you. Never watched my team lose. It's amazing. Must be a lucky charm. The amount of money I compare it to other sports, and other sports are cheaper to go and watch. Of course, there's a pandemic right now, so obviously we can't be in attendance, and that's another debating point altogether. And this is one of their reasonings behind it. But at the same time, this pandemic isn't going away by August when they intend to start. So I don't know how that's going to work when you've got travel bans in place. The players would have to quarantine. That's the thing. They would have to have secure travel somehow or quarantine, for whatever the local government organisations say about quarantine. Europe, the concept of Europe, the third wave or fourth wave, depending on the country, is out of control. I think what the clubs were trying to do was put pressure on UEFA to restructure the Champions League in their favour. The Champions League format has been announced. It's been expanded, which means the prize money has to be distributed even further. And while those discussions were going on, they've gone, right, we'll call their bluff. We'll announce this. and it's been what it is. And for once, I'm discussing one single sport, one single issue. Because normally on every live stream, I discuss every sport. You know what's happening, some big things, some little things, and quite frankly, um, this has dominated not only sports headlines but major news headlines because it's got political now. Because there's been meetings with politicians. Because politicians across Europe have come out and stated, we are going to take action against this. Tells you where things are at now. Since I've come online nearly an hour ago, let's see what. Will the players' voices be heard or ignored? Key developments so far: a dozen clubs, including. Here we go. Oh, this has just come through. Sean Gota, ex-Man City legend, right? MBE. Man City, the game changer could be the players' voices. The players are influenced by their families and loved ones. Don't be surprised by the power and strength of the players along with fans. I'm intrigued if the players' voices will be heard or ignored. What do you think? That's interesting. Sean Gota, club legend at Man City. The reason why they didn't go down to Division 4 that day. A dozen clubs, including Arsenal, Chelsea, they want it to feature 20 teams. And they want it to run alongside domestic leagues, which is not going to happen as things currently stand. I will get on to any other questions, including a commissioner. I just want to read through what's breaking right now. It's a business at the end of the day. This is someone who's put this on the Get Involved on the BBC website. It's a business at the end of the day, and they require huge incomes to pay ridiculous player wages. What do the fans expect? Here we go. Italian side Roma are the latest to distance themselves from the European Super League because three Serie A sides, Juventus, AC Milan, and Inter Milan have signed up for the tournament, but they want 20 teams in total. But Roma will not be joining them. Here's what their statement said. Now, Roma, one of the biggest sides in Italian football, very historical side in Italian football. They've won trophies in Italian football. We would like to address our incredible fans and supporters on the recent announcement of a breakaway Super League. AS Roma is strongly opposed to this closed system as it fundamentally flies in the face of the spirit of the game that we all love. Some things are more important than money, and we will remain firmly committed to Italian football on a domestic level and to fair and open European competitions for all. We look forward to continuing to work with Serie A, the Italian Federation, the ECA, and UEFA to grow and develop the game of football in Italy and around the world. Fans and grassroots football are the core of our sport, and this must never be forgotten. It's a big club in Europe, brother. It's not a sport if success is already guaranteed. Now, Guardiola has now said something. He's now been speaking to the media. Man City boss Guardiola has been speaking to the media ahead of his side's trip to Aston Villa. The Blues, who are currently 8 points clear and into the semi-finals of the Champions League, are one of 12 clubs, obviously, to have signed up. Guardiola has stated he was uncomfortable talking about the proposals because we do not have all the information. That just tells you how knee-jerk this action has been by the clubs. Guardiola said he was uncomfortable. However, the former Barcelona boss, who are another one of the 12 clubs, to sign up, say it's not sport if success is already guaranteed. We have to listen to what else Guardiola, as one of the times twice, had to say below. Football finance analysts, Americanized, want to run profitable businesses. John Purcell from Football Finance Specialist, Visible, has been explaining why some of the large clubs, especially those with Americanized, want to join the European Super League. He told 5 Live, Wake Up to Money program, they can see that, yes, there's an opportunity in football, but regulatory landscape, in order to make the game more amenable, needs to change. One of the big 6 clubs, of the 6 clubs in England that have joined, 3 are American-owned. The owners all have sporting franchises in the US. They're very well versed in how to run a very profitable business. No, they're really not. Some of them have actually made massive losses over in the US, even before the pandemic. They haven't been able to do that here in England. Yes, they have. Let's not lie about that. They've made masses of money over here. Yeah, Perez, he's a tosser. Chelsea are playing for the first time since they announced that they are one of the 12. When they play Brighton tonight at 8 o'clock. Similar to what we saw at Ellen Road last night when Leeds entertained Liverpool, fans have protested outside Stamford Bridge against the proposals. West Brom released a statement. West Brom are the latest Premier League club to release a statement opposing. Bear in mind they beat Chelsea 5-2 at Stamford Bridge the other day. West Bromwich Albion is wholly opposed to the plans brought forward to establish the ESL. As a founder member of the Football League in 1888, the club believes in the principles of fair competition and allowing all fans to dream that this year could be their year. And with that, the knowledge that poor performance may bring the consequences of relegation, which they are fighting right now. A closed league is not only that any club outside the so-called Big Six can endorse, and it's only apparent no genuine football fan, even those that follow on the six teams, can support. The six Premier League clubs taking this step have turned their backs on English football, dismissing any concerns for the future of our game at all levels, which is true. To take away the dreams of millions of fans, the opportunity for their respective clubs to earn success cannot be allowed. Albion will do everything within its power to preserve the integrity of the competition the club helped set up 133 years ago. We stand alongside all clubs, players and supporters who believe in open competition, understand that the future of English football is dependent on our collective strength to oppose these divisive and selfish plans. MPs call in major stakeholders over European Super League proposals. Following a meeting of the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport committee this morning, it's been announced that MPs will hold an evidence session to examine the impact of European Super League proposals and what action is needed to protect the future of the football of the UK. It's not saying Rangers and Celtic can't be allowed into this competition if they are invited. Details of the witnesses and dates will be confirmed in due course. The committee chair, Julian Knight, has said the DCMS committee has given its strong support for a hearing on these momentous developments in the football world. We are in discussion with key players and want to hear from major stakeholders as the impact of the ESL proposals unfold. We will reflect the widely expressed concerns of supporters, which will be at the centre of our investigation. We welcome the government's fan-led review announced yesterday, finally giving the impetus to go ahead by these seismic events. No one will be off limits in our determination to establish what needs to be done to safeguard the previously held enjoyment the sport gives to people and protect its legacy for the future. This is interesting. How long before Liverpool City's European League home games are played in Boston and Abu Dhabi? As a Halifax fan, we've been detached from the Premier League stratosphere for a long time already. I feel for die-hard fans of these clubs, but the Premier League is part of this financial monster that has been created, and that is true. Right, let's have a look at any of them. There's some new things that popped in. Milner has already spoken out. Patrick Bamford has answered questions. Marcus Rashford. Yeah, there's nothing new there. Right. That's what's broken since I came online. Right. Would there be an advantage in football to appoint a commissioner like the NFL? It would. Gary Neville's been calling for an independent regulatory body for English football. UEFA are against that because they're the governing body of European FAs and then down the pyramid. However, that's, I think, growing in growth, in support. Prince William, he's the chairman of the FA in the sense he's like on the committee. So he has a link. He has a role with the FA as an ambassador. So he actually has a day-to-day actual involvement with the FA. Boris Johnson being the Prime Minister. I'm not a big fan of Boris Johnson, but Prince William being involved with the FA and speaking is crucial. Regardless of the fact he's royalty, he's still involved with the FA. Do you reckon women's football is a good alternative to men's of the years? Well, the women's game is equally in trouble with the ESL because there's plans to set up a women's Super League, and Wolfsburg and Lyon will be excluded. They're the two biggest sides in women's football in Europe. So there you go. I like women's football, by the way. I'm surprised there's no Turkish clubs in the Super League. Galatasaray. No. I'm not, to be honest. They don't. Galatasaray and Fenerbahce and Besiktas would not have the global appeal that these owners want. Even though they've won trophies themselves, especially I think Galatasaray won against Arsenal 2000 in what was it? I think it was the UEFA Cup back in the day. So they have got some European pedigree themselves. But you look how European football's gone. The Turkish sides don't really feature in the later stages of tournaments. We're honest, and haven't done for a while. And Turkish football's got its own money problems. And again, the fans in Turkey would burn the stadiums down. Let's be clear on this. Turkish fans or ultras are overly passionate. But women's football is also at risk because what gets me is as more and more comes out, the European Super League, there is meeting. I mean, look, there are meetings taking place with government. There's meetings taking place today with the Premier League, where the 14 clubs that have not been invited or have not signed up will probably vote in favour of some action, dock points, throw them out competitions, etc. That has to be on the table. That's what's been muted because these Premier League clubs are technically in breach of contract of when each season you renew your contract with the Premier League, state that if you want to play in the Premier League or the Football League, you have to adhere by what competitions you are allowed to play in and what you're not. And the Super League is not a competition you're allowed to play in. So it's a brand new competition that has been sanctioned. There's no governing body in charge of it. So who's going to be making the rules? How many subs would you be allowed? That kind of stuff. The fact they want 15 founder clubs and they've only got 12. I do believe they wanted Dortmund and Munich and PSG involved, and they decided to back away from it. Neymar and Mbappe have re-signed with PSG. They were negotiating contracts at the time before Christmas. I think PSG were worried about losing their prize assets. And, well, Neymar's captain of Brazil and Mbappe is a key player in the French side. And I think the national coaches have had a little word saying, we need these guys. You could risk these players being in international wilderness. And you could, the FIFA World Cup makes more money than any domestic league. It's the big money maker. It makes more money. The Euros makes the second most money. Makes more money than the Champions League and Europa League combined, because it's a global event and it's sold around the world. I cannot see how this Super League is going to work. There'll be too many. There's going to be so many legal challenges. The fans' response is correct. We're already feeling priced out. Clubs have actually gone out of business before, during, and after the height of the pandemic. We've seen the debate about emergency funding for the Championship in League One and League Two. We've seen the issues about loans for non-legal grants, and how the Premier League basically, at the time, I would say just American capitalists. They're trying to sell this to the Asian market. There's Chinese money with AC Milan. There's big corporate money with Juventus, with Fiat. There's Asian money in City. There's Russian money. We have to look at club ownership. That is something that needs to be massively reformed. It's been argued about for years, the transparency of club ownership. But the reason why who anointed these clubs, the big clubs, it's the money that they earn, not their debt. Although these are actually the clubs with the biggest debts as well, which is so ironic. Not only do they make the most money, they owe the most money. The Glazers, when they bought Man United in 2004, bought it with other people's cash. It's not their own. They didn't have enough money to buy the club. They bought the club with debt. That debt is still there. And Jason, you're a Leeds fan. Just look what happened to Leeds with Peter Ridsdale in charge as chairman. The debt. Leeds were in massive 2 years before they got ready from the Premier League. They're in a European semi-final, and battling for the Premier League. It shows how quick, even with money and being a top. Valencia in Spain have been. They are the Tottenham of Spain, except their stadium isn't finished yet. It's taken a decade and 2 bankruptcies later, and they still haven't built the bloody stadium. They won the Champions League, I think, back-to-back times with Rafa Benitez in charge, and the Liga, 20 odd years ago. They're not on the table. It does strike me that Tottenham and Arsenal, it doesn't matter what competition you put them in, this is the problem. The fact that there's so much overseas money and such poor regulation when it comes to club ownership, the lack of transparency, and some really shocking financial decisions have been made. Look at Portsmouth. Portsmouth, solid Premier League side, win the FA Cup. Within 2 seasons, they're bankrupt. Money's gone missing. Poorly regulated, and that's on the domestic FAs. That's on UEFA. Financial fair play is a weak rule. We know it is, but we can reform those things. UEFA have admitted these things need reform. Serafin, I think, is the right guy to take UEFA forward. Infantino, I'm not so sure about FIFA. UEFA have admitted there are rules in place and things in place that need fixing. This is why they've reviewed the Champions League. The format they've come up with is crap, but they knew they needed to look at the format, reform the European competitions. Same with the new European third-tier competition. They knew they had to do something. The views they hold about fan culture. Well, apparently we're secondary. Apparently we are secondary. The concerns of players and managers is a secondary concern. It's all about money. They leave off the record, and this is reported on a mainstream, news outlet. I think Sky Sports reported that, oh yeah, we've caught a club chairman of one of these 12 clubs saying that supporters and the players and the money, they're a secondary concern. The thing is, if you want to sell a product, you need fans there. And if you get these plastics, a lot You're going to get fans who don't understand the culture and the history of the teams they are watching. Do you know why Juventus play in black and white? It's because Notts County gave them a second-hand kit the year they were formed, because they slightly changed the design of the striping on their shirts. Yes, Juventus play in Notts County's old kit. That's why they play in black and white. I couldn't make it any more clear. You know, oh look, 90 minutes is not too long. Okay, I can quite happily sit through a Stanley Cup playoff game that goes to 5 overtimes of 30 minutes. Happily sit through that. I've sat through the longest game in professional ice hockey history watching it. Was not bored one iota of a second. I have sat through the 2003 Rugby World Cup final that went to extra time, and Johnny Wilson wins it with the last kick of the game with a drop goal, which was an hour. I think it was 2.5 hours of my life, including the breaks in play. I sat through that. I sat through the 2005 Champions League final. I don't like Liverpool. I don't like AC Milan. I sat through that to the penalty shootout. To say that young fans don't have the attention span is bullshit. The reason why they're tuning out is they cannot afford to access the sport easily, like we have the opportunity. Young people feel like they are being priced out of the sport. You know, Perez is saying fans are disinterested. You know, I've sat through a 5-day test match watching every single the Trent Bridge test match in the Ashes in 2005. I watched every single ball be bowled and batted. I sat through that Ashes series. I only missed one test match in that 5-match series that went down to the Oval with Paul Collingwood scoring the winning runs at the Oval on one of the last balls of the last session play in 2005. I sat through that. I did not miss a ball in 4 test matches. And I was 15. Apparently, teenagers can't. That is complete not a horseshit. And it is. It is complete and utter horseshit. I have sat through one of the longest ice hockey games in the UK history, partly because the referees were calling so many penalties. You know, like I sat in an arena for 4.5 hours to watch a game. I didn't leave my seat once. To say that young people are disinterested because the game is too long is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. It is called an excuse to justify the means of their action. The fact they've lost 400 million euros is, guess what, their fault for overextending themselves and paying Gareth Bale 600 grand a week to play golf. They signed off on that contract, right? Real Madrid, right? Barcelona, Atletico not so much. Atletico Madrid's finances are actually really good. Well, there was a period where Atletico Madrid were basically bankrupt, right? Juve, AC Milan, they were done for match fixing. Inter, you know, they've got to make a decision over the San Siro with Milan and Inter about what's happening with that stadium. Italian football has declined since the 2006 match fixing scandal. It's not the level it was. The French, their TV deal doesn't exist anymore. They've lost their major TV supplier. It went broke. Right? The German league, they need the German teams to sell this product, by the way, and they've decided no. The Bundesliga has said no. The 2 biggest teams in Germany have given them the finger. They have flicked them the bird and said, we are sticking with our Bundesliga brethren in the German system because the Bundesliga is our family. That is their statement. Bayern Munich have released their statement, their official statement. It was on their Twitter. It was on the Bundesliga Twitter feed last night of a picture of a Dortmund and Munich player going off shoulder to shoulder after I think a draw or a win for one of the sides, and walking off, turning their backs on the European Super League. That is a very poignant photograph. That is a statement of intent. You could not make it any more clear. Oh no, the fans actually are part owned the clubs in the Bundesliga and are on the board. And you need to have consensus. And with fan involvement in German football, it's not going to happen. It just won't happen. The way the German football is structured with club ownership, fan involvement, it's a no-go. Oh, Daniel Levy's just sacked the best manager Tottenham have had in 12 years. And yes, you can debate Mourinho, but he brings headlines, and yeah, the team is performing because the team is crap. He's got to play with crap players. Um, yeah, Ryan Mason is now the temporary manager for Tottenham, and he feels great pride of being interim coach. But guess what? His team could be kicked out of the League Cup final, so he may not have. Burnley chairman Alan Pace. Now, Burnley have got American money as well. So this is interesting. Burnley chairman Alan Pace, who's part of American investment group ALK Capital, has also been speaking on Radio 5 Live. Now listen to this. And whether he as an American can understand the proposal. So this is an American part owner of a club. I certainly understand the business model of a closed shop, said Pace, the understanding of not having promotion relegation, but there is something that has drawn the rest of the world to this league and to the special nature of what happens that is different. This is an American, right? So bear this in mind. All you need to look is at the fan base. Why is there not a fan base for any American sport the size of the Premier League? It's not just the way it operates, there is something special. I can understand the operating side and the economics are involved, but you have to look back and think, why did you choose to get involved in this league? Why do you choose to get involved in this sport? Because there is something very, very special, and it's those fans, that passion, the structure. There are so many pieces of it. You cannot destroy that. You cannot rip out the heart of the body and expect the body to live on. This is from an American owner of a club. You go, I can understand the business model, but without the fans, you ain't got a product. Villa, Chief Executive Christian Perslow. This is the Premier League meeting has taken place of the 14 clubs. He's held roles at Liverpool and Chelsea. The board made it quite clear they can contemplate the most severe of sanctions as the Premier League board against these 6 clubs because they behave in a way that self-evidently damages the league as a whole and their fellow 14 shareholders, which is the rest of the Premier League. All I can see is that there was quite unanimous sadness, anger, and disgust at the events of the last few days against every single one of these clubs. Here, the clubs could, in theory, be expelled. It's on the table, but no one's in form of act to self-harm. They're putting the expulsion option on the table. What we need to find is ways to enable these 2 tournaments to thrive, and they won't be better off without. And that they won't be better off without these clubs, said Percy. So the Villa chief executive has said expulsion's on the table. They've had their meeting. Expulsion of these clubs is on the table. They're considering the strictest of sanctions. Apparently Levi's having serious regrets. I couldn't give it. Daniel Levy. Does need permission from the fans. Do you think we should introduce a 50+1 rule in England? Have a feeling it's too unrealistic. 50+1? I have no idea what that is. Oh, the 50% +1 to get a decision over the line. Americans don't understand. No, they don't. They force their culture upon us, and they think our culture is backward, especially when it comes to sport. That we're backward and we're quaint. Yeah, American sport and culture is different because of the franchise model. They, you know, there's a reason why the NFL Europe has failed. There is a rule that means these American owners and Russian can be forced to sell these clubs. Yeah, well, the Man United is traded on the US stock exchange. Their share price went up on the announcement. But here's the thing, that these owners willingly bought into these teams over the past 20, 30 years, knowing the system they were buying into. And they just don't get it. I'll get the clubs back in that. Yeah, there's growing calls for fans to have more involvement. Wimbledon, yeah, MK Dons, and a reformation of AFC Wimbledon. But there is growing calls for greater fan involvement in day-to-day running of clubs. Have a fan groups on the board, so the fan supporters associations, representative on the board, or representatives on the board. That those calls have been on the table for quite some time, and we'll see. But the fact that the Premier League have had their meeting of the other 14 clubs, excluding these six, and they're considering the strongest possible action, which is expulsion, then you would have to discuss with the EFL, would they want those six clubs in the EFL? And the EFL would also have to have a meeting of the remaining 72 teams in the Football League in regards to whether they accept them into the league or whether they go, no, non-league. Because the EFL, a Football League club can win the League Cup and the FA Cup and then play in Europe under a UEFA sanctioned competition. So that will be interesting. What these owners are trying to do will damage English football for the rest of us. It's enough to force them to sell. Well, if you've got a damaged product, it's not worth the money you have. Right, here's some of the fans getting involved on social media. I'm seeing some questions as to why we are reacting so strongly to this. The answer is that a closed competition takes away that incentive to perform and keep performing. You just get the money regardless. Yeah, these will be pointless games, really. There'll be no intensity to them. It takes away the threat of relegation and the excitement when you're doing well. Yes. West Brom beating Chelsea 5-2, for example. That's a team fighting relegation. That's a team trying to push their way up the league table as well, with Chelsea trying to get, solidify their European spot. And West Brom had more intensity that day. Then to lock away even more money to these select clubs destroys the chances of any other team succeeding. Absolutely. Let's be absolutely clear. That's a guy called Josh. Let's be absolutely clear. There will end up being a Super Champions League. What's happening now is posturing and brinksmanship by all parties. This is someone's opinion. They will all end up getting around a table and figuring out a solution. I don't think they will at this point. I think we have now got a split here. We've come too far. The rhetoric being used, there is no backing down. I'm just so unhappy my beloved club is involved in this mess, which has been on the card since FSG took control of Liverpool, so the Fenway Sports Group, which owns the Boston Red Sox. A league not involved in competition, qualification, promotions, relegation will be shunned by fans, but it won't happen. So be positive, everyone. Yeah, so that's the latest to pop up. All clubs should do the German model, potentially the club owned by the fans, but I think it's too late over here. Possibly. Exeter City is the closest we've got to the German model. Now, I think is owned by Supporters Trust plus some private equity investment. Best run club in England, as regularly audited. Always runs at a small profit. Has saved enough money to rebuild St James's Park in Exeter. So Exeter City is the model that you want to basically base your club on. Because the Exeter City went bust and the fans bought the club. Problem is these clubs are worth so much now, but something needs to happen. If the Premier League kick them out and the EFL don't want them, then I guess the top six become folded clubs. They'll have to enter the non-league. That's the only other option they have. They've done this before with Accrington Stanley. What became Accrington Stanley? They kicked Accrington out of the league, I think, in 1963, and Oxford United replaced them. That happened. So a club has been expelled for not meeting rules and regulations before. I agree, fans have the majority share in their club. Too much has been said to suddenly sit around a table and talk. Yeah, I think we've now drawn the line in the sand. The Premier League having a meeting and discussing possible expulsion. The argument I heard against something similar to the German model is that the big foreign investment improves the quality of players and managers. No. I believe honestly that the quality of football that we are seeing right now is less than what it was 20 years ago. That's across the board in Europe. Personal opinion, I think there's too much money and players are just getting a wage. An average player can earn what a quality player earned 20 years ago. Outside investment is fine, but they need to respect their way of doing things. As a Blackburn fan, I have the Venkeys in charge of my club. I'm going to leave that out. I'm going to quickly go to the toilet. I'll be back in 30 seconds. We're back. And we're back. Right. The argument I heard was something to do with the German model. No, the German model, look how quality that league's been. Bayern Munich, just because they've had a good decade, haven't always dominated. We've seen Bayer Leverkusen at the top, Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen, Hanover. We've seen, Dortmund had their issues financially. Mönchengladbach, Red Bull Leipzig now have got some outside investment, but the fans are still are involved. It's a fun league. I like German football. And Munich, the gap between Munich and the others is shrinking massively in recent seasons. Schalke have had a good history. Stuttgart, Dusseldorf, Kaiserslautern. German football is a far more. There's some good clubs in German football. Uh, the idea that a team gets into competitions based on skill and achievement is now over, and this goes ahead. Yes, yes. You can have. Imagine Arsenal and Tottenham trying to win this. They can't even win games now. They're a shadow of the clubs, or Tottenham have not really won anything since 2008, but they are really shambolically run clubs right now. Their transfer policy is a mess. They're not playing very well. They can't defend. They can't score. And I feel sorry for Mourinho in a sense. I'm not a fan of Mourinho, his style of football, and his style of coaching. But if it is true, and these are reports that have yet to be confirmed, that he refused to take training in protest over the announcement of the Super League, that a manager of that standing in the game, in European football, a manager of that standing, if you are setting up a Super League and you have a managerial position vacant because a manager's gone, no, I'm out, I'm not interested in this, you want to sign Mourinho up to your club. You do. I wouldn't say the Premier League has been corrupted for money from day one. English football needed investment desperately in the early 90s. Attendances were falling, TV weren't great, stadiums were crumbling, money needed to be injected. And ultimately, that was the reasoning behind it. Yeah, there was issues, but they wanted to stay part of the pyramid structure that we have. They weren't a closed shop. Because here's the thing, Oldham Athletic and Swindon Town were founders of the Premier League. Dropping that little bomb in there. Yes, Swindon Town and Oldham Athletic were founders of the Premier League. Yeah, they're ex-Premier League clubs playing in League Two. The fact that Bradford City made it to the Premier League in the late 90s, but Barnsley have been in the Premier League. Yes, no, clubs that are playing in lower leagues now have been in the Premier League. It was never a closed shop, ever. Oh, look, yeah, I mean, the fact that Spurs are playing City this weekend, the EFL could vote to kick them out and get the next two clubs who are not part of the Big Six, who have been knocked out at some point, to play the final. We may not get a winner awarded. They could be booted out there. And there goes Guardiola's quadruple complete. They're out the FA Cup. There goes their treble. They could also be booted out the Champions League and the Premier League. There could be all their trophies gone within 48 hours. And yes, they could, and these clubs could have their titles stripped. They could have titles stripped and points deducted. Oh yeah. Oh look, the way Spurs have dealt with the Mourinho thing, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't. And the fans' response, the fact that we are considered the afterthought, and football is not my favourite sport, by the way. I've made that clear in this channel in the past. I'm making it clear again. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, I would say yes, football is my favourite sport. Now, if you were to ask me in my teenage years, my early 20s, I would have said yes, football is my favourite sport. It now isn't. Leicester City have now released a statement. Leicester City have just become the latest Premier League side to share a statement opposing the ESL, and they are currently third in the Premier League, above Arsenal and above Tottenham and above Chelsea. Oh yeah, so some of these big six, Leicester are above them right now, but they've not been invited on the ESL. Here's what their statement says: Leicester City Football Club has joined 13 of its Premier League colleagues, so that's 14, in opposition to the ESL, and reaffirm our commitment to the long-standing and successful structure of domestic football. Competitive integrity and merit-based achievement are fundamental principles of the sport, which, if compromised, will cause irreparable damage to the game, to the clubs, whose legitimate aspirations underpin the entire football pyramid and the communities those clubs serve. As custodians of our respective clubs, it falls to us to uphold football's values. And they are foreign owned, Leicester, by the way. Okay, remember that. The solidarity and unity that protect the future of the sport and ensure its commercial success help strengthen its foundations throughout the pyramid and into the grassroots game. Football clubs exist for their supporters whose passion and devotion are not simply a response to the game, but a fundamental and indispensable part of it. Their contribution is fed by their right to dream, a right we share collective responsibility to protect. Leicester City is wholly supportive of the Premier League's position in this matter and enormously encouraged by the way football supporters, government and regulators have come together to challenge this threat to the game's future. Oh, Grimsby Town. This is brilliant, by the way. I'll get back to some of these questions in a second. Um, Grimsby Town, League Two side Grimsby Town, have offered fans of English clubs involved in the European Super League a chance to swap their shirts. Grimsby Town has offered to exchange fans' shirts for the Big Six for one of its own. It said the offer would last until Friday or while stocks last. The club said it would accept Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, and Man United or Tottenham tops that were 3 years old or less. Items can be donated to Grimsby's Blundell Park Club shop or bar, with all items given to local groups and projects in Africa. There you go. Grimsby are giving away stuff for free and then taking the return shirts to give to charity. Grimsby has no money, by the way. None. Yeah, that tells you something. That tells you how disgusting this greed is. Right. Right, okay. I wonder if Daniel Levy will call Spurs from the Super League. I think they've dug themselves a hole. They've signed this letter of intent. I think it's a bit too late, regardless if they suddenly backtrack. I think they're done. Pep Guardiola might be at City next year if this goes ahead. Well, he wants to win the Champions League, and if they're thrown out the Champions League, he loses that. That's interesting. Just wanted to say, love your channel and content, awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Mr. Hobbs. Thank you, Dan. Nice to see a new viewer. Appreciate it. Get some comments in, get some questions in. I used to love football and cricket, but those sports have priced me out. Yeah, cricket with the 100 format, for example, is another sport that has allowed money to dictate the direction of the sport and has let the fans down. If these six were expelled from the Premiership, would that leave the next top teams on the table with West Ham? Yes. If you would then expunge the results of those six teams, Sheffield United are still bottom. West Ham will be top. Leicester would be second. So West Ham would be champions if we go by expunging the results of these six clubs against 2 and 4 against the rest of the league. West Ham will be top. Leicester will be second. So Leicester still are a top three side, and West Ham are still in a European place and champions. The Premier League captains are meeting to discuss what to do now. The players are key here. If these clubs don't have players, they can't go ahead. Players didn't sign contracts for the Super League. No, they didn't. They signed contracts for their clubs to play in the respective league they are playing in, with get-out clauses if they are relegated or if the team doesn't meet expectations. For example, let's say they don't finish in European places, they can be put in the transfer market. So yes, the players didn't sign a contract at all. Their contract states that they're playing in the Premier League and or cup competitions, including Champions League and Europa League domestic cups as well. Their contract does not state that they have to play in this European Super League. That is true. And I do feel sorry. For once, I have sympathy for the players. I do. It's not the players' fault. As employees of the club, the clubs have taken these decisions without consulting them about a change to their contract. This is where the PFA needs to get involved, and the League Managers Association say we are considering balancing our members over strike action, because that then really hurts these guys. Because here's the thing: BT and Sky will demand more money back if games can't be played because players have gone on strike, or if players or teams boycott. What then? If the other 14 clubs refuse to play against these six teams, do these six teams get points awarded, like a 2-0 win for a failure of the opposition to fulfil the fixture? Premier League and the FA will be in a difficult position if clubs refuse to fulfil fixtures. That will be interesting. And the clubs have said we're going to wear our protest shirts. Yes, Sky Sports and Amazon have stated they weren't involved in any discussion. BT have stayed very quiet, though. But looking at Rio Ferdinand and Robbie Savage on BT Sport last night, I think BT, if they were in favour of it, their employees have spoken out against it quite publicly. On a live broadcast, I can also see BT pulling out as well. Apparently DAZN are the ones they want. Who the hell are DAZN? Who is this broadcaster? These football players always seem to be quite cowardly. I wouldn't say that's the case. Ander Herrera, who's at one of the clubs involved, has come out and said he's against it. And there's an Atalanta player. Well, Atalanta aren't one of the clubs involved per se. He's come out against it as well very publicly in a statement. And we've got current serving managers and players now basically saying we weren't consulted. I haven't seen James Milner's. I haven't seen Bamford's either. I have to be careful about playing footage on here for copyright reasons. But I know Milner and Bamford were interviewed after last night's game, the Leeds-Liverpool game. If you want to watch those interviews, they're on the BBC Sport website. They are on Twitter. They're on, yeah. So Ander Herrera is at one of the clubs in Europe. I think PSG were linked with this last year before Christmas. He's a current, yeah. I don't think PSG, because they are owned by basically the Qatari government, and beIN Sports, which is the media arm that is also owned by the same owner. Interesting that they're not on the wavelength. I think PSG, with the amount of negativity they've had about their ownership and their sponsorship deals and the conflict of interest and the domestic TV deal collapsing in France, they want to be very careful. They're not, as I say, they're not the biggest fan base in France. Marseille, Montpellier, and Lyon have bigger fan bases for registered members, season ticket holders, and average attendances. Marseille regularly sell out the Stade Velodrome, which is about 63,000 people. Montpellier, their stadium's smaller, but they get regular 100% plus attendance. So the queue for tickets outweighs the actual capacity. And Lyon, they've redeveloped their stadium to make it bigger capacity. They also regularly sell out with people waiting outside to buy tickets. So PSG don't sell out their games, partly because they're too expensive. And PSG has a very small fan base compared to the other three clubs that I've mentioned. They can't sell out their stadium all the time. Ander Herrera's statement as a current active player who has played for a couple of the clubs concerned in the past is striking. Players like Ian Wright, of the standing they have in the game with Arsenal, for example. He also played for Palace, which is interesting. Now, Palace is one of the clubs that hasn't been involved in this, hasn't been invited to join, or hasn't been asked to join. Arsenal is one of the clubs that have decided to sign up for this. Ian Wright has stated many times in the past, if it wasn't for professional football and a few key figures in his life, he would have been in prison. And because of his background, his ethnicity, he would have been in and out of prison for a variety of crimes. Football gave him a pathway to a better life. Oh God, if it goes through the courts, then it can't take place. And on a legal standpoint, these clubs are in breach of their league contracts. Before each season starts, the clubs sign up to league rules. So in the Premier League's case, you play in the FA Cup, the League Cup. If you qualify for the Champions League or Europa League, your team can compete. And if your club wins the Champions League, you go into that World Club tournament thing. So which are all sanctioned tournaments. If you choose to play for a non-sanctioned tournament, you're in breach of contract. So automatically the club owners are in breach of a legally binding contract, which is not only a civil but a criminal offence. Although they can, UEFA have stated they will possibly ban players for this year's Euros if the European Super League goes ahead in August. Serafin has come out and stated that players will be banned from the Euros, which then actually screws up the big nations, including Germany. Germany would have a lot of players they couldn't select. Spain, France, England, Italy, other nations that aren't involved as well would be affected in international football. The African nations are the hardest hit by any proposed ban of, and I do believe FIFA are not backing down on this, and neither are UEFA. Whatever, I don't know what the South American FAs and the South American organisation have stated, but if players who are, let's say, like Neymar, well, here's the thing that they are threatening banning. They could. because they are technically a breach of contract, even though the players are unfortunate byproducts in this, because their considerations have. But the chairman had a meeting and they said the players' concerns are secondary. It's on the record, Sky Sports. It's on the Twitter feed. It's on the BBC Sport website. That player concerns are secondary. It's already on the public record. And that's all you need to know, really. Bearing in mind, Barcelona tried to play games in the US in the regular season, and the players were not threatened to go on strike and actually balloted in favour of strike action. But they quickly backed down from taking games to the US. It's an unsanctioned tournament. I don't know. We will have football next season. Just these clubs won't be involved in it. Yes, I do agree. The PFA, the players' unions across Europe need to take action. Words are fine. You need to now ballot your members, because from what I gather from UEFA, these players will be banned from the transfer market as well, and these clubs will be banned from the transfer market. So some of these players with their contracts are up this summer. Hence the Neymar and Mbappe situation at PSG. They wanted to keep those assets because that sells merchandise for PSG. They re-signed them and pulled out this European Super League. So there you go. Player power does have a thing called merchandise sales. If Pogba is not allowed to play at the World Cup and is not playing in the Premier League, which is the main moneymaker for Manchester United, ironically, how are you going to sell the product? Personally, I believe this is a political chess game. The ESL and the founders in Agnelli and Perez want UEFA to give in to their demands. UEFA don't seem to be giving in to their demands. With the statements coming out from Serafin, it's the other way around. I think I watched your video yesterday on the Chelsea side of things, Kemmel, when I got in from work, and you got very passionate. I understand, and I'm very interested on this because from reports coming out, it seems that City and Chelsea are wavering. But whether you like or hate Mourinho, from reports reported, it was because he refused to take the players out of the training paddock in protest. He hasn't released a statement. We haven't had an interview from Mourinho since his sacking. Maybe because Tottenham have got a gagging order in place, which I think again is wrong. Freedom of speech. But Chelsea themselves have been found, obviously we just, on the channel, on your channel, we've discussed, Chelsea's transfer embargo when Lampard took over youth policy. Same with City as well. They were found guilty of breaching UEFA's youth policy rules. And it'll be interesting. Imagine if like Man City and Tottenham are thrown out the League Cup final and Chelsea are thrown out the FA Cup final. It's a possibility because the other 14 clubs have stated every option is on the table and we are considering expulsion. That is the key thing. And imagine if they're expelled from the league, the points are null and void. Leicester stay in the top two, or finish second. West Ham win, and it really makes an interesting jumble of the table. If you take the for and against points earned and by all teams, West Ham win the league, Leicester are second. Sheffield United still get relegated, or do they? Or do they go, right, here's 6 teams from the Championship, here's 6 teams from League One, 6 teams from League Two, and then 6 teams from the non-league, etc., because there'll be 6 teams less in the Football League. They are considering expulsion. I believe the EFL are also considering as well. I didn't see what the Madrid court said earlier, but the fact a high court in a country has now come out tells you something. Because La Liga as an organisation, and these clubs are taxed, If they take their revenue outside and play games outside, they can't tax them. I wouldn't say Pep's was the strongest interview at all. I think Tuchel, with the way he worded his interview, was quite good. They have ruled that UEFA and FIFA can't apply sanctions against the top. They technically can because they're the governing bodies of their industry, and contracts have been signed. So I think the Spanish legal system is different to the English legal system. We know this, but I do believe these clubs are in breach of contract, which then is a civil and a criminal case, depending on the legal jurisdiction that you are under and covered by. So we'll see what happens. So I wouldn't be against this if it was a summer tournament in pre and post season where they put out full strength sides and played 90 minutes like a proper tournament in the summer. I wouldn't be against it. Um, we have these friendly tournaments all the time, all around in the pre-season in the summer, in July and August, after the World Cup or the Euros is finished. I think Villa would actually be higher up the table as well than what they currently are. They will be in a European spot. I believe they're a good third, actually. But no, yes, expulsion is on the table because you're in breach of your trade body rules. You could be expelled from a trade body, which is what the Premier League is, which is what UEFA is. It's technically a trade body. It's a governing body of an industry. Just remember that. Take the football side out of it. It's a governing body of an industry. And you have to abide by regulations. And governments also have involvement with these governing bodies because there's also some government funding in there for grassroots projects and infrastructure. Some of the stadiums that these clubs play in have got government money tied up in them. Yeah, there has been put on the table that legislation could be brought in. Each governing body does actually get money through the Olympic funding as well, from governments and the amateur game. And governments have lent money to the lower levels of football in grants and loans, which need to be repaid. So there is actually government money across the board in Europe tied up in European football through loans and grants. That ruling could be also, that Spanish ruling could be open to legal challenges as well from La Liga and the Spanish FA. Just because the Spanish High Court in Madrid has ruled currently doesn't mean there can't be an appeal. So already we're seeing legal action. Whether it's in favour or against, it's interesting to see. I'm not a massive fan of this Americanization of sport globally. Florentino Perez. Bear in mind, Spanish clubs, they elect their presidents. So the fans, the members, are the ones who put him in his position. And Barcelona are going through a presidential election right now for their club president. Yeah, we looking at the fan response and football's response against this, and how the fans and players responded to the La Liga proposals to take games to the US in the regular season. I can see issues with this. The fans were against that. The fans are going to be against this. They constitute the members of the clubs in Spain. The sanction of players. I think the players have been basically thrown a curveball. They haven't really been helped in this situation. If I'm honest, they've been thrown under the bus. From everything that's coming out, the only club that seems to have informed their playing group and their management is Juventus. From all the statements released so far, Pirlo has come out and said, "Look, this is the discussions we had with Agnelli, the owner, and the chairman about the proposal. We're in favour of it because of what they've laid out. But from all the other comments, it doesn't look good. And bear in mind, Juventus were a club under pressure for the signing of Ronaldo for the fee they signed for him as well. Workers threatened to go on strike at the Fiat factories across Italy. So because Agnelli is the chairman of Fiat as well. So there is government money in Fiat from the Italian government. So this is where it gets messy. There is government money involved in a lot of these clubs at various points with some of the industries involved. There is government money involved in the Fiat group. They own Juventus. It's a mess. Plain and simple. It's a mess. And yeah, I'm smoking on a live stream. I don't care. I do put down this is not made for kids. So I can swear a little bit, get away with it under YouTube rules. Got to be a bit careful what I say, but from what I've read so far, yes, a Spanish court may come out and say these things. That is open to appeal. From the various league managers associations and players associations, which are the trade unions. That can be open to appeal as well. Perez, we're trying to say they're not. They're saving their own bank accounts because these clubs have overextended themselves for a lengthy period of time and have racked up huge debts. All of them have debt, apart from I think City and Chelsea. But if City and Chelsea were standalone clubs, they are also basically on their knees, bankrupt. So there you go, with the amount of spending. Yeah, they are. They've already started protesting against the match against Brighton. That is already been reported. There's already fans well out earlier because the kickoff's not for another 2 hours. They've been outside the ground for hours protesting. And from what we can gather, from what's been reported, Chelsea and Man City are starting to waver in their position, which is interesting considering their battles they've had with UEFA over youth transfer policy. Yeah, that's been reported all day. Is that City and Chelsea are wavering in their position. Interesting, Arsenal have not said anything so far, and none of the club owners, apart from Perez being an Agnelli, who are quite forefront in this, have actually issued a statement saying why. There's been no press release officially from Perez, who's chairman, official press release. He's been interviewed, but there's been no official press conference with the 12 clubs so far stating their intent. Well, it is what it is. I'm not a fan of UEFA and FIFA either, but my enemy's enemy is my friend in this case. Oh, they didn't want to be left out. Oh, peer pressure. That's weak on their part. That is weak on their part. That's two owners who are hideously wealthy, by the way, and two clubs whose owners have got rolled. They can sleep in money, basically. That just shows where we're at. Is they want to be greedy too, and if they're wavering in their position, they weren't fully committed. Oh well, look, I think there was a statement from one of the Italian publications. I think either the Gazzetta dello Sport or the Corriere dello Sport, one of the Italian major sports papers. And they get good circulation of over 1 million copies a day. These are well-read publications, and they also have an online in multiple languages, which are very popular, saying that we will even if they backtrack, they're traitors. We will always remember this. And let's have a look at. Like I said, so so there's more people going online on social media in recent minutes. I'm not sure if I can add anything to the debate that hasn't already been said incredibly passionately by other pundits and commentators over the last few days. The voices that really matter in all this are the real football fans, the true custodians of the game, us. So I'm going to hand as much of this live text commentary as I can over to the people sat at home staring at the computer or flicking through their phone to say what you want to say about Super League. That's the BBC get involved. That's one of the moderators on the BBC website. The Super League. In referring, of course, to the European Super League, or is it just the Super League? Regardless, it's a breakaway effort by 12 of Europe's top clubs, including 6 in the Premier League, to form a league that is largely devoid of relegation and promotion and threaten the very integrity. The only story in town. In an ordinary world, I'll be coming on here this evening to build up to and describe a hard-fought Premier League game between one side fighting for Champions League and the other battling against relegation. You know, a match with stakes and as a result, some interest. Unfortunately, football is not an ordinary place at the moment. Don't worry, we'll get on to tonight's game between Chelsea and Brighton in due course, but first we have to tackle the issue that has been retained from the elephant in the room to a bill in a china shop. The scene at Stamford Bridge, I've got to be very careful, but there's thousands of fans outside protesting right now, making their voices heard. Do you think tonight was just going to be a game about football? This is over. There's Chelsea fans getting quite visceral about that. Yeah, they Shearer's come out and said ban Super League clubs from the Premier League. Alan Shearer, club legend. Thank you very much. Club has obviously stated the players and I were not involved, so no involvement, no feedback from the players and the management. Yeah, there's all sorts. European Super League. Yeah, they've stopped really talking about the current because they're focusing on the build up of the Chelsea Hull game. So nothing new's really broken there. No matter Chelsea and City, yeah. No matter what happens now, things will be put in place to stop this ever happening again. I think that's going to happen with legislation. Neville's regulator idea will probably happen now. It has to across the board in Europe. Breaking, the government is considering implementing the German 50+1 fan ownership model, and that is the legislation that's been put on the table. Sky Sports News, yeah, the crowds are increasing. I've already seen it on the Twitter. There's at least a couple of thousand outside Stamford Bridge now. Oh yeah, I do think there has to be some responsibility taken from obviously the formation of the Premier League. There was a reason why it was formed, and it was actually a necessary evil. There needed to be massive investment in the infrastructure of the sport in this country, and fan attendance was falling for the previous 20 years. There was issues with grounds, Hillsborough being the prime example of ground infrastructure. Football stadiums were crumbling. But the amount of clubs that have since gone out of business or into administration has increased tenfold since the Premier League era because it costs so much to get there, and then you've got to try and compete against established clubs. This makes it harder. But yes, the crowds are increasing outside Stamford Bridge by the minute. The protests are getting bigger and bigger. We've already seen, placard. I mean, the Busby fan group at Old Trafford are threatening to take all the banners down that they put up. Will some good come from this? Well, if we get the 50+1 model, we'll see. The fact is, if social media existed before the Premier League was formed, I doubt it would have happened. Not necessarily. The issue was the infrastructure of not just football, but a lot of sports, a lot of professional sports grounds of team sports were in massive disrepair. Infrastructure was crumbling and attendances were falling. And while the Premier League was a necessary evil, I'm not a fan of having it solely on pay-per-view TV. The Liverpool Shankly supporters trust or whatever it is, they're taking their banners down as well. So they're now making the point: we're taking away our property from your stadium. And Liverpool fans have been regularly protesting against the way ticket prices and all sorts. Fans are not customers to the sun go around Stamford Bridge. 50+1 model means limited bad owners like my club. Birmingham City actually covered themselves in quite a lot of glory this time last year during the pandemic when the playing group agreed unanimously on a player vote to take a wage cut, not a wage deferral, I think it's a wage cut. So up until now, has the Premier League been a success? It hasn't. It hasn't. Yes and no. And as for what I'm wearing, my team, the fit and proper persons test has been a joke. Financial fair play has been a joke. And the amount of clubs who want to reach the promised land getting into financial difficulty has exploded. There are clubs going to administration every season. There are clubs being docked points every season. There are clubs that have gone out of business in the Premier League era. There are clubs that have been in the Premier League that are now in League Two, struggling to survive. Bradford City, Oldham Athletic, Swindon Town, all those clubs have hit the wall. So Wigan Athletic, another one, Bolton Wanderers, the list goes on. Has it been a success? We've only had 7 clubs win the Premier League since its formation. So, and one of those, and nearly half the Premier League titles were won by Man United. So, take from that what you will. just putting it out there. Take from that what you want. Yes, English clubs have been reasonably successful in Europe since we were allowed back in after the Hazel disaster and European UEFA banning European English clubs for 5 years, which means Oxford United would have been in the Cup Winners' Cup in 1990. They missed out because of the ban still being in place, even though they won the trophy that year. They weren't allowed to compete in the Cup Winners' Cup. Yeah, Oxford United would have been in the Cup Winners' Cup had the European ban been lifted a year earlier. Do we know any more whether UEFA will throw City, Madrid, and Arsenal? That could be on the table. The fact that the other 14 Premier League clubs are considering expelling these clubs, so we'll see what happens. Other football news: Coventry going back to the Ricoh Arena. Well, yes, the whole situation with Coventry, that's another mess, and that's to do with moving from Highfield Road, and they're not owning their stadium. A lot of these clubs don't own their stadiums; they lease them. Football ownership is, we can bring football ownership and into the debate. The 50+1 model, I think, may become law, and therefore these overseas owners may not like that. But they've got to abide by the laws of the land that they want to do business in. If that means they fuck off, good. Sorry, but in my mind, as a Blackburn fan, looking how the Venkies have run our team, we have 5 managers in a season. The following season, we were relegated, and we haven't got back since. We ended up in League One at one point. We were the first Premier League champions to end up in League One. Nottingham Forest, another example of winning what is now the Champions League and ending up in League One. First club to do that. Birmingham's had 5 managers in 5 years, and we're a national embarrassment in terms of women's football. I don't know what happened with Birmingham women's team, but yeah, that is. Yeah, Chelsea don't technically own Stamford Bridge, and Spurs are technically paying off their stadium. Yeah, Wasps have, I think, relented on their Ricoh Arena decision to not allow Coventry, but that's to do with Sisu and other ownership issues. I'm not fully knowledgeable on the whole Coventry City Wasps Ricoh Arena situation, but it's been a shit show since the stadium was built all those years ago. There's been nothing but problems, but Wasps now own the stadium, and they need a tenant to make up the losses. And Coventry have massively improved their league position in recent years and are improving again, and could be back in the Premier League very, very soon. But Chelsea being one that doesn't own their stadium. There's a weird lease agreement. They used to own their stadium, they don't now. It's a mess. Spurs are paying off their stadium, massively indebted. So we'll see what happens. They were planning to redevelop Stamford Bridge, but the lease issues where they don't fully own the stadium prove problematic, and there's concerns about future ownership with Abramovich. He could sell to the right buyer. If this 50+1 rule becomes law, that changes things. Oh God, Darlington. Yeah, there's a reason why they don't exist anymore. Yeah. Rushton and Diamonds. Yeah, they've gone out of business. It doesn't matter what level of the pyramid you're looking at. Bury have gone. Macclesfield have gone. Gretna in Scotland. It doesn't matter what level you in the pyramid you play at in whatever league. Clubs go out of business more regularly than you think. Chester. The issues with club ownership are plain to see across the board. So I don't know what else to say really on that. They want to bring in a Super League women's competition, but that will be the same 12 clubs that are currently signed up, and that excludes Wolfsburg in Germany and Lyon in France, the 2 biggest clubs in women's football in Europe. So it's a no-brainer. That's going to fail. And they're the 2 most successful clubs in women's football in the last decade. They played I think Wolfsburg have played in 5 of the last 8, winning 2, and Lyon have won the last 5. So, but between them, they've won 7 of the last 8 women's Champions Leagues. Not to have them would be a joke. They tried to move from the bridge, but Chelsea fans wouldn't let them. There's previous players buried underneath the stadium. Gateshead were demoted. Yeah. No, it would actually damage the French team and the German team because they've got a lot of players playing in the leagues with clubs that have signed up for this European Super League proposal. It would make it more open and make Germany and France worse off, actually, ironically. Um, they could be banned from the Euros this summer. So, no, I'm not actually so sure on the England squad because the dominant members of the squad come from these big six clubs. You lose your national captain, you lose your number two in Henderson, so a good solid goalkeeper who wants to be number one. That means Pope will get the gloves and Pickford will be back up probably. The WSL and the women's football is growing massively. Very popular in Germany. And Wolfsburg are the best team in Germany. And to not include them in the European Super League is a joke. I don't know where you go with this. From everything I've gathered, there's a lack of communication between the owners and the management and players. I think the only club that has come out and fully stated that there was communication is Juventus, and they're not as popular as you think, with considering they were involved in the match fixing scandal in 2006. It's still got ramifications for Italian football now. It's not sitting well with a lot of people, and the fact that big clubs in Italy are now saying, at like Atalanta and Roma, who are competing with Juventus for the title, by the way. It's not they're competing for the Champions League spots. They are fighting hammer and nail to be in their version of the top four. Tells you a lot. Oh no, because they're part of the same clubs. They want to make money, plain and simple. And the women's game just doesn't generate the income. It will be suicide to then have these teams excluded from their domestic competitions, considering that these are, considering that Man United women have only existed for a couple of years, and Liverpool's women aren't on the same level. It'll be embarrassing to watch them lose 10-0 every week. It really would. It would do nothing to develop the women's game, and takes a lot of money out of the women's game that's needed in the women's game right now for infrastructure development, grassroots. It's got nothing to do with the feminists at all. Oh God, yeah. No, match fixing allegations against some of these clubs are well known and proven with AC Milan and Juventus in a court, which led to criminal prosecutions. On the debt side of things, Juventus don't have a lot of debt. Atletico Madrid don't have a lot of debt. A lot of the other clubs do. Man City and Chelsea, if they were standalone clubs, they would be broke. But they've got wealthy owners, so they don't have debt really. That gets written off by the ownership. But yeah, Man United's one with a lot of debt. Tottenham with a lot of debt. Barcelona, we know their financial problems. Real Madrid have made losses. They're still making a profit. They're just making a smaller profit. But the debts are well documented and are on the record. So they're going to have franchise like Chelsea Mavericks. Oh God, I can see that happening. I know one would support them. Yeah, where Spurs and Arsenal are in the league, West Ham and Leicester are above them and playing rightly so on form. Tottenham haven't won anything since 2008. Leicester have won the Premier League more recently than Tottenham, because Tottenham haven't won the league since 1961. The last time Tottenham won a trophy was the League Cup 2008. They have an opportunity this weekend to win silver for the first time in 13 years. They could be thrown out. And they've sacked their manager, which I think is ridiculous. With their next game as a cup final, that makes no logical sense. And it's because, if rumours are to be believed, Mourinho was speaking out against and protesting against this proposed European Super League. And I think the players are on board with him. I think the players were willing to strike with him. Oh, all the big six teams. Yeah, if you look at the actual results, it's not entertaining reading. It's not as if they're fun games. You can have a great 0-0 draw. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some really entertaining scoreless draws in my time, and some really entertaining 1-0. But no, no. Yeah, Birmingham, Portsmouth, Swansea, and Wigan. Yes, they do. The fact that none of them are in the Premier League tells you all you need to know. Yeah, it just shows how fickle things are. I mean, all those clubs have played in Europe. They've all got silverware, which Tottenham lack. in recent years. And yeah, they've all had their own issues. Birmingham, Wigan, Portsmouth, and Swansea have all had money. Swansea, I think, are in the strongest position financially out of those four clubs. The other three have all had money issues since those titles and have been nothing short of shambolic off the field with ownership. And that's down to the domestic FA, the English FA, and UEFA financial fair play and regulation being weak, which has, I think, allowed this Super League to get off the ground at all. Is the governing bodies. But again, you have to look at the governing bodies then to compare to now. I think there's different leadership now. They're trying to reform the Champions League. I mean, I think the reforms for the Champions League are wrong. I think they're the wrong idea. I would like to go back to what the Champions League was originally, which was straight knockout. Cup Winners' Cup should be back, and you should have straight knockout for what was the UEFA Cup, Europa League. Just get rid of the group stage, straight knockouts, and it makes it more entertaining for fans. It's what I hate the group stage. I've always hated the group stage of the Champions League and the Europa League. Never liked it. Never will like it. And the Cup Winners' Cup was, I think, my favourite European tournament to watch because you got some really random teams in there that otherwise, on league position alone, if we're basing on league position, wouldn't be in those competitions. I think you should make the Champions League about the domestic champions of each country, of all the member associations, plus an invite to make it a nice even number, to make it 56 rather than 55. So on a coefficient, so you invite another team in, because there's 55 UEFA associations. You have the winners of each domestic league playing in what is the Champions League, and then you invite a 56th team in. Draw it out of a hat, out of the top leagues across Europe. You draw it out of a hat. Cup Winners' Cup the same. You would have some teams that, if based on league position alone, under current, just based on league position, wouldn't be in. Oh look, Tottenham have sold their soul with their new stadium. They're indebted to their eyeballs. The pandemic has exposed that. They're trying to sell the NFL, London series. 2 games have been played there, and Tottenham would be broke. Oh well, yeah. You can see if these clubs are expelled. FC United of Manchester already exists. AFC Liverpool already exists. You could see fans set up their own fan-based clubs with fan ownership, much like FC United of Manchester and AFC Liverpool. They already dislike their current American ownership. The other 4 clubs could have set up their own splinter clubs, much like AFC Wimbledon reformed after MK Dons, which was the old AFC Wimbledon, moved to Milton Keynes about 16, 17 years ago. It's going to happen again. Oh yeah, why Arsenal Spurs in this? 30 years ago, actually 20 years ago, it would have been Newcastle. Would have been in there. Blackburn would have been in there. Everton would have been in there, absolutely. In '95, they won the FA Cup, and that was their last trophy. They would have been in there. Forest, yep, Nottingham Forest would have been in there. Villa have won the League Cup in more recent times, but yeah, they would have been in there. And in 30 years' time, it could be Brentford, Barnsley. I hope Fulham never actually get in that because their owner is an absolute wanker. But Brentford and Barnsley, absolutely. In theory, yeah, but in reality, no, it's not going to happen. I mean, Brentford more likely are a more likely candidate to have success in the next 30 years with the new stadium, the new ownership, the direction the club's taking, the development of players, the upward growth of the club. They wanted to patent the name Liverpool. It's a city. I think 600,000 people might have a thing to say about that. Not that I'm a massive fan of Merseyside, but Liverpool actually is a city, so kind of have fun with that. Trying to patent a city. Who the fuck do they think they are? In fact, the Boston Red Sox have only won 1 title in 100, or 3 titles in like 110 years. Tells you something about this ownership group. The teams I own haven't won that many domestic titles. Just putting it out there. Not as successful as they would like you to be. It's can't do that. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm very critical of a lot of things. to do with football. Just texted my girlfriend, but because she finishes work in a minute, and I will as soon as she finishes work. I'm done with the live stream, by the way, because we need to sort out bits and pieces. But all things aside, I have been highly critical of how FIFA and UEFA have dealt with governance and the FA. I was highly critical of the FA's plans to try and sell Wembley because there's government money in that, taxpayer money in that, which is yours and mine if you're a British taxpayer. Yes, Everton actually used to own Anfield, and hence why Liverpool play at Anfield is Everton sold them their ground when they went to the Goodison Park. That's so ironic, isn't it? Everton's old ground is Anfield. Yes, Everton is the older of the two clubs. And was called San Domingo as well at one point. Yeah, I've heard about the Spurs planned protest tomorrow. There was an unnamed executive from these clubs releasing statements yesterday said they didn't understand the concept of relegation. Okay. In that case, why are you in your position if you don't understand the rules of the league you're playing in? It's just, yeah. Why did the Premier League government let these lads who own a few teams in America own our clubs? Because they want the money. This is the problem. They want the money. Is Chelsea coming out of the Super League? There are reports coming out that chief executives and the clubs, Man City and Chelsea, are wavering on their position, but I think they put themselves in a position which they can't get out of. They've signed the letter of intent. They've signed up to it. They'll be in breach of another set of contracts and more league problems. In Romania, there are two FC Dinamo Bucharest teams. Well, Steaua Bucharest is the biggest team in Romania. FC Cluj is the second biggest. I think one of them was set up in protest at the running of the other. Yes, Liverpool, where they play, Anfield and Goodison Park, they're actually in the Everton district of Liverpool, ironically, by Stanley Park. So, yes, that makes sense. That could be Everton Athletic. Has football officially died for me? It was dying for me years ago. Has it died for me completely? There's a reason why I prefer other sports, and yes, they are based on a non-relegation model in the NHL and the NRL, but there's a reason for that. The NRL couldn't have promotion relegation like the Super League over here because the money would just die. The game would die. Clubs would actually go out of business. And in the NHL, it's how their sport is run with the franchise model. It works over there for a sport where it's exceptionally expensive to run an ice hockey franchise. Exceptionally expensive, with all the equipment and training that goes. Hence why they have affiliates in the leagues for it. So there is a pyramid structure in the NHL with the AHL and ECHL as a pyramid system, and other non-affiliated leagues where also players can develop. But I find that they have salary caps that work, that make it a far more competitive sport than otherwise it would be. So it makes sure the poorer teams can actually compete. And there's always an option for expansion. So Seattle are joining next season. So it's not fully closed shop because they constantly look at expanding or relocating. It's not a closed shop as such, but you have to buy in. You have to have the money to set up a team and do your cost exercises to make sure that a team that's joining is going to be profitable. Money's involved in all sports. Look at F1. F1 died for me years ago. NFL I've got bored of as well. There are too many football teams in England and in Europe not to have relegation. Yes, it has to work. Football solid star with 92. Football was already having issues pre-92 across Europe. Hence why the Champions League was brought in, I think, in 1990 or 92, I can't remember. There was problems with dwindling attendances, crowd, obviously, the hooligan nature of the sport, which has not gone away fully. It's still a massive issue on the continent as well as over here in the UK. But Premier League necessary evil. Technically, if the Premier League was to vote to remove these teams and expunge their results, West Ham win, Leicester a second. Yeah, and the season would end there. And then you would have to, Sheffield United would not get relegated, and 6 clubs would be promoted from the Championship, 6 clubs from League One, 6 clubs from League Two, and 6 clubs from the non-league, and then all the way down the pyramid. That would happen. because I can't see the EFL not following suit with the Premier League if that option is undertaken. I feel so bad for Sheffield. They got relegated. I can tell why they wanted to win and not get relegated. But they've come back to earth. It's like Ipswich Town when they were in the Premier League. Great first season, shocking second season, very similar. But they don't have the worst Premier League record. That's held by Derby County, and the second worst at the end of the season is Sunderland with 9. Actually, Sunderland have the two next worst seasons with 19 and 21 points respectively. So Sheffield United can actually not be as bad as Sunderland. So there is hope Sheffield United not be the worst, second worst Premier League team of all time. No, they won't null and void. They'll just expel, which means they will null and void the fixtures that the Big Six have played in, and therefore West Ham would win the league, and Leicester would be second. I think Everton would be third. I think it's Everton, and I think Villa end up, and Wolves end up in a pretty healthy position as well. So it does completely change the face of it. West Ham and Leicester stay in the top four, and other teams get moved up. Can you see UEFA having a similar problem with FIFA and World Cups, even before national teams get better in qualifying, like Panama World Cup, like the Dutch, for example? That's a separate issue. That's a completely separate issue altogether. It's got nothing to do with this. There are players. I think UEFA know that they get the majority of teams for a World Cup. I think South America get the second most teams at the World Cup for qualification, but they're looking at expanding it. So that means more teams from other regions get in. Sheffield United have their own overseas money issues as well. They've got overseas investment. But Sheffield United fighting to stay in. West Brom beating Chelsea 5-2, fighting to stay in there. Fulham fighting to stay in there. Obviously, Brighton and Newcastle and a whole host of other clubs fighting to stay out of trouble. These 6 clubs, including Arsenal, Tottenham, who are just there in mid-table doing nothing. It's not right. West Ham win. Many say they're the biggest team ever to win it. I would say, West Ham are one of the biggest teams never to win the league title, but they have won other trophies in their time. But they are possibly the biggest team not to win the old Division 1 or the Premier League fan base. I would agree with that. This means in 5 years' time, we'll all get used to the Super League and be like, whatever I watch. Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the line has been drawn, and there is no retreating from it. I won't watch, personally. I've got no love lost for any of the sides who've signed up for this at all. As a neutral, I obviously want the English teams to do well in the Champions League and Europa League and make it to the final and showcase the best of English club talent. But I'm a Blackburn fan. I'd rather see Blackburn win the Premier League again, or the FA Cup, or the League Cup. They've done the Premier League, they've done the League Cup in my lifetime. The FA Cup we last did in 1912, but we were the first team to win it 5 times and the first team to win it 3 times in a row, so we get to keep the original trophy. So, fuck you, Wenger. Just because Wenger's won more titles. That's my personal opinion. There's a reason why Blackburn are allowed to keep the original trophy. We won it, the first team to win it 5 times. No one can take that away from us. And the first team to win it 3 times in a row. Sky Sports, Amazon are out. I think BT are out as well, considering that some of their employees have openly been critical of the format and the proposed Super League. BT's hemorrhaging money anyway. They won't have enough financial capital behind them to get the rights. This DAZN, I have no idea who they are anyway. The matches, it'll be dead rubbers. There'll be no intensity to it. It'll be just going through the motions, and you're actually playing less games, so these players will not be up to speed, and it'll be just a dull watch. Like most Champions League group stage games are a dull watch. It will still be dull. If the big players leave, who will watch it? Well, this is the situation. Players haven't. Some players have spoken out. Others haven't. It's very interesting. The players that are speaking out are not in the Super League clubs, but we'll see what happens. The Glazers will spend even less once they know they don't need to spend to get into the Champions League. The fact the Glazers are still paying off debts, they financed their purchase of this club with other people's money, and those investors probably want their money back. Just putting it out there. They've also got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to sort out as well. And they've won the Super Bowl for the second time under the Glazers' ownership, but for a long period of time they were crap. Daz is a Canadian-based who own rights to football, boxing, and ice hockey. As an ice hockey fan, Sportsnet and Rogers had the Canadian rights, and CBC had the Olympic rights. We'll see what happens. James Milner saying how he doesn't agree. He's near the end of his career, so for Liverpool, it's not really a big issue as he's a veteran player, sure, but he's not a star player at the club. And I'm being fair to James Milner. I think he knows he's not a superstar player. He knows he's a solid top level player. He knows that. But the fact he's come out and said what he said is key. I think he knows he's near the end of his career. Plain and simple. But he's played for City. He's played for Liverpool. Ironically, he started his career at Leeds. And Leeds have taken a fair few points off the Big Six this season. So Leeds would actually be negatively impacted if the Big Six thrown out. Oh, Eddie Hearn. Anything that the Hearns get involved in has got organised crime written all over it and match fixing written all over it. Rashford's, I think, come out with his social media and said he's against it. So bear that in mind. While he's not giving a statement, he's posting stuff on social media that is giving the finger to this idea. And Rashford's a legend in my eyes. The fact he plays for a club that I don't like is a rival of my team historically. Doesn't bother me. I like Marcus Rashford. I like what he stands for. He's a man of principle. He's a young man with a very mature head on his shoulders. I can see him possibly leaving football altogether and getting involved in politics. I think he's definitely a man of principle in a sport where principles are lacking. He's a man of integrity in a sport where there's a lack of it. And yeah, he obviously wants to play for England. The fact that Petr Cech has gone outside to calm fans down tells you the anger that is there. Club legend of both Arsenal and Chelsea. And now Luke Shaw's coming out. He wants to play for England. The fact that he could be blocked from playing at this year's Euros, he's the informed left back. Tells you something. It tells you something. Players are starting to speak out. They're finding their voice. The best way to find their voice, however, for me, yes, use social media, but also you've got a players' union. You have a trade union you're a member of with the PFA. Put pressure on the PFA to ballot the strike action. Luke Shaw, I love him. I do like Kevin De Bruyne will play in this league if he can't play for Belgium. Belgium have a very good chance of winning the Euros and the World Cup. And De Bruyne has played for City and Chelsea. Mo Salah has played for City, Chelsea, and Roma, who are a club who've come out against this. These are star players that sell, put bums on seats when fans are allowed in attendance, and sell merchandise. Let's have a look at Luke Shaw. Let's see what he's put. Luke Shaw. I just want to see his Twitter feed. Oh, he's born in Kings upon Thames, just down the road. Let's have a look at Luke Shaw, because Luke Shaw, he's had a lot of injuries, bless him, and it has affected his career. I'm going to follow him just because it's Luke Shaw, but I have a lot of time for Luke Shaw. I really do. I think he's another well-spoken individual. I'm going to follow that. I'm going to follow him. No, a minute has passed and I haven't thought about the current situation. I wondered how I could express my opinion without causing issues for my club, which everyone knows I care about deeply. I grew up watching the Premier League and the Champions League, and I fell in love with the sport watching what, in my opinion, are the two biggest club competitions in the world. My ambition was one day to be able to play in these competitions, and part of this determination was to show that with hard work, anyone can achieve these dreams and play on the highest stages. There was so much passion around the world for football, and I've been privileged to experience that firsthand. However, I worry that these changes could impact the sport that I and millions of others love. We've been without supporters in stadiums for over a year now, and I know how much myself and the team have missed them in each and every game. Fans and players should always have a voice, and their opinion should always be counted. England's team will be destroyed. It would be Pickford, Rice, Sancho, and Bellingham, and Grealish. Ward-Prowse should be in the England setup, by the way, as a first team regular. His set plays are brilliant. Let's have a look at notifications. NHL player safety. That's nothing interesting. Ice hockey. They're all ice hockey related. That's hilarious. My notifications, brilliant. In my opinion, and I am saying this. One English club are considering Super League withdrawal after backlash. So that is now being reported that a club is considering withdrawing. I think it could be Chelsea, more likely than anyone else. I think Chelsea are the ones who are really feeling it with the protests, and we'll see what transpires. But the fact that we have a club now considering their position very, very quickly is showing the Super League is starting to fracture. So there is that to consider. I haven't seen the Petr Cech footage yet, but the fact that he's a club representative, he's a club ambassador with Chelsea. The fact that he's going out to calm down, we could have a violent riot, not just a protest, a riot. And the fact that other players are now coming out and saying what they're saying, a lot of them have played for the clubs concerned. Others are just playing in the leagues that are affected. But it's getting to the point where we're having this kind of. Jamie Carragher said, "Once one club U-turns, they all will." Well, I think Chelsea are fearful that they could be thrown out of the FA Cup, which they have a chance of winning. They could be thrown out of European football, and they could be thrown out of the Premier League. So, and in the short term, that means prize money. Because this Super League hasn't actually been fully confirmed as a start date and contract. And there you go. Chelsea are now preparing to withdraw. It says it all. I knew that Man City and Chelsea were quivering. Well, let's just have a look at BBC Sport because this gets interesting. BBC Sport. Let's have a look. What are they saying now? Because obviously their game kicks off in just over an hour's time. Oh, hello. Barry Hearn has stepped down as snooker and darts boss. So Eddie Hearn's getting more grubby mitts and more power. The fan protest is actually getting quite violent as well. So let's have a look. Get involved. Okay, now it's getting interesting as more fans. As a Liverpool season ticket holder and fan all my life, I feel let down by our owners. Just when we were beginning to turn our fortunes around on merit, I might add, we the fans have been kicked in the face, stamped on and left to defend their disgusting decision. We don't want this ESL. No true fan does. I, for one, will not renew my season ticket. I'll never set foot in Anfield again. I'm absolutely disgusted with what our owners have done to us. Disgusted. Okay. I feel like FSG, which is the Fenway Sports Group, have ripped the heart out of my team and club, just flabbergasted at the way they've treated everyone who has supported them since they came in. But at the end of the day, they proved who they are with this businessmen, not sports lovers. This is the same for all the other owners. Bleed the clubs dry. Pat Nevin, former Chelsea and Scotland winger. I don't think Chelsea were ever massively on board, and to be honest, I didn't really see a short-term benefit from them doing it. The sides have shown a semi-united ball so far, but the minute one brick crumbles and the whole wall could fall. I'm not convinced by it at all. Oh, my girlfriend's had a massive plumbing issue in her house. She said, like, she's just got from work and her house is flooded because her sink's backed up. It always felt like one return on this by one of the 12 clubs could be a pivotal moment and potential key blows to plans is at the sound of the house of cards creaking. Chelsea have definitely Chelsea pulled out 6 minutes ago officially. Chelsea are preparing a documentation to request withdrawal from the European Super League. 10 minutes ago, the 14 Premier League clubs not involved. This is their statement. This is crucial. Premier League, alongside the FA, met with the clubs today to discuss the immediate implications of the Super League proposal. The 14 clubs at the meeting unanimously and vigorously rejected the plans for the competition. The Premier League is considering all actions available to prevent it from progressing, as well as holding those shareholders involved to account under its rules. The league will continue to work with key stakeholders, including fan groups, government, UEFA, the FA, EFL, PFA, and LMA, to protect the best interests of the game and call on those clubs involved in the proposed competition to cease their involvement immediately. The Premier League would like to thank fans and all stakeholders for the support they have shown this week on this significant issue. The reaction proves how much an open pyramid for people. More fans. Why don't we fans just unite and say we'll not watch the Super League? No eyeballs, no ads, no revenue. Hit them where it hurts. Their bottom line. Too naive. Another fan. When greed overcomes passion, sport becomes business. Football is for people, not for profit. It's another fan. It's now 51 years since my first game at Stamford Bridge. I've never experienced anything that has united so many disparate football tribes, which everyone who loves this wonderful game is against the anti-football cartel that is trying to destroy our wonderful sport. I've now seen the Petr Cech, trying to calm the fans down. They're protesting. More coming out in recent moments. The only good thing that has come from this horrific betrayal at the top of our game is the fact that fans of clubs who, under normal circumstances, cannot stand one another are united and stand in solidarity against the 6 shameless owners who are trying to steal our game. Our love of our sport is greater than any affiliation of a club. As a Fulham fan, I've no doubt that our ownership would have signed up for the Super League if we were in a position to do so, despite the statement from the chairman, because the owner is an American. I think most Premier League clubs would have done the same, sadly. Hopefully it can stop, and then it's time for all clubs to follow the German model of 51% fan ownership. Another one, having been a loyal Man United fan since the days of the Munich air crash, this is an old boy. This guy's in his 70s or 80s, by the way. I can't believe our owners have put a pen to a plan that threatens the team's existence. So Bobby, who is ill, would be heartbroken at what is happening. Please, that's what's happening. It's the plan. You might have seen the shirts worn by players of Leeds last night saying football is for the fans and that teams running Champions League football should earn it. We understand Brighton players will wear the same T-shirts in tonight's warm-up for tonight's game. The Chelsea have officially withdrawn. I honestly think that the clubs won't prepare for anything. This sounds like an utter desperate panic from a number of clubs that have dived into something that's 7 days. Into something that's God, there's more. Oh God, it's breaking all the time now. Politicians are involved. As I was saying, I honestly think that the clubs weren't prepared for anything. This is the Super League. This sounds like an utter desperate panic from a number of clubs that have dived into something that 7 days they weren't interested in because they were talking to UEFA. Now they've got this all signing, all dancing thing. That's Pat Nevin. I respect Pat Nevin's opinion on a lot of things, actually. I do miss him on Channel 5 with the old Europa League, Europa Cup, when he was commentating. I do miss Pat Nevin on the old telly. And yeah, the protests are getting more visceral at Chelsea. So, Chelsea will still be punished if they do. I don't know. I think Chelsea trying to avoid getting thrown out of the league. But even if they pull out, they're still below Leicester. I think level on points with West Ham or something. It's interesting. Apparently, he was saying, give us time. I know, give us time. I think Chelsea knew that it was a bad idea. Do I think Chelsea will be punished? Will they get mercy as they're first to pull back? I think they're going to have a frank discussion with the other Premier League clubs, the other 14 clubs who didn't sign up for the Super League or weren't invited for the Super League. We know that Leicester rejected the initial Super League proposal back in December. So there is that. Sources have reported over the last day. Yeah, we know about Chelsea. They're preparing. It's broken. They're preparing documentation to withdraw. If City and Chelsea pull out, FSG, Perez, and the Glazers will dig their heels. That's only 3 clubs then. If you've only got 4 clubs, which include Juventus, United, Liverpool and Real Madrid, you've got 4 teams. How can you sell a league with 4 teams? It doesn't work. Well, when Chelsea step back, you have to look at the fan reaction. It is getting violent outside Stamford Bridge. There's a heavy police presence now. Show that. Oh, we got Preston North End fan. Preston North End, I think, were the first club to release a statement. Financially, it makes sense for the big clubs to agree to the Super League. The reason why these clubs have agreed to this is because they're racked with debt. They've overspent for years. Overspent. And Abramovich, he does have the most to lose because he wants to sell the club. He's open to offers with the club, and they can't redevelop Stamford Bridge as things currently stand. So if you're thrown out of your current competition, the current competitions that you are allowed to participate in, and you're in a closed shop, you can't sign new players. They've already had a transfer embargo. They are in a very awkward position. I don't believe deep down Chelsea wanted to sign up to this. They felt pressured by other clubs to do so. If more teams bail out and that 51% becomes law, this get interested. Yes, it could. So it is getting interesting. If this gets put through, it's an interesting proposal. But it's also a social thing as well, because look at what's happened to so many clubs with poor ownership in the lower divisions and in the Premier League over the years, where clubs have gone into administration, gone busts, all sorts. Um, so yeah, do I think if more teams bail out, yeah, or do you think they'll put it out? And no, I think the legislation's on the table now. I think because Fenway Sports Group and the Glazers are basically heavily involved in the Super League. I think if the government was to backtrack, it shows weakness. We need strong leadership. Something's been lacking in sports governance for years. And I think that could also go and transpire to rugby league and rugby union and to ice hockey and other professional sports that have less money involved and where fans are crucial to those existence of those sports. With no fans in attendance, those sports can't exist. And we've seen fan involvement in those sports. Sky Sports News has now gone into commentary carp. Oh God. I think looking at the last 48 hours, in since all this was announced, the reaction is there for all to see. It's plain for all to see. There's no running away from it. There's no hiding from it. The fact the owners can go this far shows how weak the sports governance has been. And I've been arguing on the channel for stronger sports governance across multiple sports for 4 years. I mean, I when I started this channel out, and this is why I want to do the birthday live stream tomorrow for the channel, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do a short video discussing the growth of the channel. But when I started out and started doing sports videos, which got a lot of views, was the Neymar transfer and the Newcastle United tax investigation. And what that has highlighted is just sports governance is weak as piss. It's like Foster's. It's just kangaroo piss. But it is what it is. I think there won't be another attempt. Not if the 50+1 rule is brought in, a 51% fan ownership rule is brought in. It would never get over the line. Oh, someone has finally agreed with the salary cap suggestion I brought forward. Right. No, if it does fall apart, there will always be an attempt, but it will always fail. The situation is the 40 away from the national federations, which have never implemented a salary cap to control the excessive spend that has an ultimately led to huge. Yes, one thing that may come out of this is salary caps may be enforced. You know, uh, the debate with League One and League Two bringing forward the idea that has now been voted down. Clubs have said we need a salary cap to survive, and that's at lower levels. And clubs are dying in the lower levels. But yes, a salary cap, it does surprise me that other European sports leagues that aren't football, so ice hockey, rugby league, rugby union, have salary caps in place. And whether they work effectively or not is open for debate. But globally, you look at the amount of sports that have put salary caps in place in order to control the excessive spending. And I use the NHL as an example because they were one of the first leagues. The NBA, I think, was the first league over in the US to bring a salary cap in, and that was Gary Bettman when he was working at NBA head office. Follow my channel for any period of time. Gary Bettman's the commissioner of the NHL. He used to work for the NBA. He brought in a salary cap system. It works in the NBA. It sort of works in the NHL. There's a few issues with it. There's been collective bargaining agreements put in place that we've had several lockouts and strikes in the NHL. Major League Baseball doesn't have a salary cap. They've had multiple issues with player unrest and owners and all that. But there are salary caps. The NRL salary cap, the AFL salary cap, rugby union in Europe salary caps across. I mean, the Saracen situation, but there's a salary cap for a reason. Uh, Look at rugby league salary cap in all professional leagues. Major League Rugby, a new league in America, only been going for a few years. Salary cap from day one. Salary cap from day one. European football is one of the last major sports leagues, not sports competitions, because you've got the Champions League and Rugby. No salary cap, just financial fair play. And financial fair play is broken because there's no cap on spending and there's no cap on salaries. Because a club like Man City can have infinite wealth, PSG, infinite wealth from the owner, but it's revenue and expense. And under financial fair play rules, I think it's 35% excessive losses over revenue, you're in breach, which means I think 60% of clubs in the top two divisions in European football across the board would be in breach. Salary caps do stop clubs hurting themselves, and it also makes it a more level playing field for every team in that competition. However, with a salary cap with a promotion relegation system, you have to therefore adjust the parachute payments and put clauses in contracts with players to mitigate that when they get relegated, and vice versa when they get promoted. You need to give some assistance to those clubs getting promoted so they can meet the cap floor. You need to have a cap floor and a cap top cap and a cap base. This is why promotion relegation gets a little bit tricky. It is doable and it is enforceable. You have a soft cap, which is flexi, and you have a hard cap, which is rigid, and then you have flexi caps and all sorts. There's different ways of doing it, and they're not overly transparent necessarily, but they are designed to stop clubs hurting themselves. But at the same time, clubs will find a way around it to sign a marquee player. They'll just give bigger signing bonuses and smaller salaries. They will find a way around it somehow. But when they're caught, they are punished. The salary cap might be perceived as a social measure, but guess what? The American sports all have salary caps. All of them have salary caps apart from Major League Baseball. The most capitalist country in the world, their major sports leagues have salary caps, apart from baseball, which is just a mess of a sport anyway, which I can't understand. Now, zero. If Man City are going to pull out, they needed Man City for their ownership side of things with Dubai. So if Man City go, they've lost two key Premier League allies in this. Chelsea have won the Champions League and the Europa League, and multiple league titles. Yeah, obviously all since 2004. And so there is that. They were key to have on board. The fact that German clubs didn't sign up shows that this is now turning into a shambles very, very quickly. So just just sending a message to my girlfriend to say if she wants to watch, she can. And now City are going as well. Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. So they've lost two key players that they need to get this going. They want 15 founder clubs. Three of the clubs they wanted to be founder clubs decided to back out of the idea before Sunday. Two German clubs and PSG. Now you've lost two more, so now you're down to 10. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I think they've worked out they're on the losing side. Public opinion's gone against them, and the fact that legislators are coming in now. I think what these guys think, the owners think, if we pull out, they won't bring in the 50+1 rule by law, which is German law as it stands. That's still going to happen. That's still going to happen. I can see the deck of cards tumbling very quickly. It's apparently Chelsea are preparing to withdraw. This is what's been reported. Over 1,000 fans have gathered outside to protest. The game kicks off in 45 minutes. They may delay the start of the game because of the ongoing protests. Efforts to leave have come just 2 days after Chelsea were announced as one of the 6 clubs to sign up. The ESL has been widely criticised. Someone's already commented. Good riddance, more teams to follow soon. Yep, we'll like that. Oh, fuck off. Top stories, yeah. So that's well, it's Dan Rowan. I can't stand Dan Rowan. The fact it broke ages ago. He's well behind the ball there. I think it's the threat of being expelled from the Premier League as well and being thrown out of English league football. I think is having an effect. Man City fans will remember, and there were our employees at Man City. Remember, they were in the old Division 3, about to go into Division 4, or what is now League 1. They were in League 1 at one point, which is the old Division 2. And about to go into the 4th tier of English football. The fact that ex-players at clubs say a big name like Sean Goater is a legend at Man City. There's a reason why he's got an MBE. There's a reason why he's a hero to City fans who remember Man City before Sheikh Mansour bought the club. He saved them from relegation to the 4th tier of English football. He scored the goal that keeps them in the old what would have been the 3rd division in old days. So, like, this is what's key is if City go, it's taking 5,000 to Plymouth. Honestly, honest. Sean Goater, a player of his standing in the history of and giving his statement, that tells you all you need to know. Plain and simple. Let's have a look. Right, more fans are now having their say. The sad thing is, I can see other teams dropping out, but Glazer and Wood will force Man United to stay in the the European Super League. At which point, Oli Solskjaer will be thrown under the bus. The O's may quit the Super League, but it's down to the backlash of fans. They're still money hunting, as far as I'm concerned. Chelsea fans are here because they want their voices to be heard, and they want the club's hierarchy to notice them and know so much they oppose these plans. The hierarchy couldn't fail to notice it. The police have estimated over 1,000 fans, but this is difficult to know if Chelsea react to this, or the Premier League, or the government. So Chelsea buckled. Chelsea leaving the Super League is big, but it's Man United and Liverpool we need to hear from. They're the big dogs. Chelsea are independent enough to leave the scheme on their own. Arsenal, Spurs will follow the tide. Come on, Man United, do the right thing. Man City, I'm told they don't want to be interested anymore. An hour ago, Chelsea were determined to join the European Super League. It's difficult now if the news have been broken here at Stamford Bridge, yet the fans have been cordoned off into a specific part of the ground to allow the team coaches in. It's dramatic news. It's a major development. An hour ago, it's also with Chelsea would claim they were determined to join the ESL. It's a significant development. More fans. I'm happy the first domino is falling, but how is the Chelsea back office that they're already pulling out after 2 days? They really not expect so much blowback. Really damn glad that Chelsea finally saw the right passage, but we should never embarrass ourselves and try to sell in this self-serving experience. Hope it burns down. Wolves released a lengthy statement not long ago It contains the following, but these are the so Wolves have now pulled their punches, and it's Dean Smith. He's given a statement on behalf of the 2014-2015 champions. We would like to extend our congratulations. Yeah, basically Southampton and Wolves. Yeah, it's they're all coming out now in the last few minutes. The news I've been waiting for all day. Delighted, relieved, but no club can expect these to ride the way back. This has to be a moment of change if we can make it impossible to do this again. Chelsea fan. I really hope the news about Chelsea is correct. If so, it will kick City into gear and we'll pull out of this nonsense competition as well. And then you've got the team news. Oh, there's more coming in all the time. I've been a Chelsea fan. This is another Chelsea fan for 31 years. My dad has travelled home and away with them since the 60s. We spent most of the afternoon in the garden getting very emotional about the fact we may not renew our season tickets and never go to the club we love dearly ever again. The most recent news is the best birthday present I could have wished for. Atletico Madrid are possibly pulling out as well. They're tumbling. They're tumbling. So they're now down to 9. It's starting to collapse. I think there has been a line drawn in the sand when they said players with bad competition, they'll be thrown out of their domestic leagues. And Atletico want to win La Liga. Now, if Real Madrid stick their heels in, Atletico are champions. It's starting to the dominoes are falling. It was a power play. I think UEFA called their bluff. I honestly don't believe they were deadly serious. Although JP Morgan, I think it's Barca, they've got presidential elections at the club. Their handling of this is going to affect who becomes president. There'll be the candidate who's against this, who's probably going to win. Barca can see the writing on the wall. They want to renew Messi's contract. They want him to retire a Barcelona player. He wants to play for Argentina at the World Cup next year. Messi's contract is up at the end of the season. Messi sells their merchandise. No matter how well or badly Messi's playing, he sells merchandise. He puts bums on seats. The fact that Chelsea have quivered, they're all tumbling now. They've seen the anger. But an Italian publication yesterday said, we will not forget these 12 clubs. They are traitors to our sport. They went for a power play and they lost. We'll see how long Liverpool, Man United and Real Madrid hold out. We will see how long they hold out. Like, at the end of the day, my girlfriend's a Chelsea fan. When I told her last night what was going on, she was like, what? And she went nuts. And she's not overly passionate about football. Yes, I'm dating a Chelsea fan. I know who would have thought that. My girlfriend Holly is a Chelsea fan. And she's like, what's all this like I see on your Facebook and your Twitter about, rest in peace football? What's going on? I explained the basis of the European Super League and how 12 clubs, including Chelsea, want to basically set up their own rival to the Champions League and make loads of money, but make sure no one else gets the money and it's a closed shop. And yeah, from what we're hearing, Man City and Atletico are also preparing documents to pull out, which basically means there's now 9 clubs left. You've missed quite a bit. Basically, when we started the live stream, there were 12 teams signed up. 3 hours in, there are now 9 teams signed up. Long story short, massive fan protest outside Stamford Bridge. Obviously, yesterday, Mourinho gets sacked in protest of this is what's reported, and they've sacked him. So I think Tottenham are dug their own hole. They've got massive debts. They need money. This pays off their debts. This competition will pay off their debts. So Chelsea have literally confirmed they are pulling out. Man City and Atletico are rumoured to be the next 2 to quiver and collapse. I don't understand why Atletico signed up for it, to be brutally honest. It serves them better not to. And with Man City, they don't need the money. Um, um, they're not a well-liked club anyway, outside their fan base. And a lot of their hardcore fans don't like the direction the club has necessarily taken. Barcelona may also be on the table as pulling out of discussions. Barcelona has upcoming presidential elections because the fans and the members have a large say over how the club is run. And Chelsea have just buckled. They buckled. They've got a lot to lose from this. You know, Man City obviously want to play in the League Cup final on Sunday. The deck of cards is collapsing. And if the government brings through the 50+1 legislation, which is 51% fan ownership, we could see some of these owners sell up and leave, which is what I hope. Which also would see Mike Ashley lose his controlling stake at Newcastle, but he wants out of Newcastle anyway. So there'll be ramifications for other clubs as well, but it would stop the rotten ownership that we've had for too long in European football. The shortest rebellion in history, no, the shortest war in history was 76 minutes. Ironically, I love that. We won our on Facebook. My mate Sam is a Chelsea fan, but we won our cold nights in Stoke. I don't know if you can see that, but one of the fan banners protests is what we won our cold nights in Stoke. What was this? Was provocation from the start to negotiate different rules? Well, I think the change of format to the Champions League was part of the reason behind this, and this has been going on for a while since the UEFA said we're looking at the format for the next TV deal in 2023, 2024. The pandemic has highlighted and exposed these clubs overspending and the clubs being reckless with their finances. And salary caps may be a result of this as well. I think UEFA would need to strongly consider salary caps for European football. Man City have withdrawn as well. We know that Chelsea and Man City aren't the drivers of this plan. They are slightly different because they are owned by extremely wealthy individuals, and the motivation was more fear of being left behind. It was always that they were last to sign. It seems that they're going to be the first to come out, and I don't think it's a huge surprise. Something has changed today, whether it's the backlash, the worldwide condemnation, the government pressure, the fans that we've seen protesting all the players, or whether they've just worked out it's not worth the trouble. Pat Nevin. I've done 19 interviews today about this topic. I'm not even slightly surprised that Chelsea have pulled out. I can't see how it'll go through. It seems desperate from the clubs. I've heard a few people say they've got it all legally tied up and there's no chance of that at all. They only needs one brick to fall. This is gone now. It's dead in the water and we can get back to close normality and discuss what the Champions League looks like. Yeah, it's all falling down now. Florentino Perez, I can't see his position being tenable at Real Madrid. I think they're going to vote him out as club president in the upcoming presidential elections at Real Madrid. When that happens, he may have to resign. So in 3 hours, we've gone from 12 clubs. We're proceeding with this to at least 2 clubs definitely pulling out, possibly Atletico, which makes 3. Barcelona are rumoured to be on the way out as well. The deck of cards is collapsing. In 3 hours, we have gone from we're forging ahead with this. We've got backing from JP Morgan Chase. We're going to make loads of money. It's falling apart. So all we have, all 12 breakaway clubs are meeting to disband. That's brilliant. Well, let's hope they're all kicked out of the domestic leagues anyway for being shit and docked points, and heavily fined. Their power grab has failed. All it has done now is bring in regulations to make it harder for them to do it again. Their bluff has been called. They were hoping their bluff wouldn't be called. UEFA, FIFA, and the various leagues and their bluff has been called massively. And not only that, legislation looks likely to be brought in to stop them from doing it again across the board. Fans finally get what they want, which is a say in how their clubs are run. Which means I'm glad because now I can. Of course they are. They're arrogant. They're conceited. They are overconfident, and there's going to be consequences from this. These clubs could be thrown out of the competitions they play in. There could still be punishment for them, and there should be. And I do hope the domestic FAs and UEFA come down hard and expel them from the Champions League, Europa League, and the domestic competitions. There's no news on United and Liverpool, but the fact that the 12 breakaway clubs are going to meet tonight to discuss disbanding it. It's insane how quickly the deck of cards has fallen when the first brick left. Any news? As far as we know, I'll drop you faggot, bugger. Basically, in the 3 hours that we've been live, it's collapsed very, very quickly. Much quicker than I thought. I think they must have got lawyers to look at the proposals and gone, we're going to face a lot of legal challenges and legal bills that it's not worth it. It will cost more than what we're going to get in revenue. We'll be taken to court, legally challenged, and that in itself, and bear in mind, Chelsea have got to play Brighton tonight. The fact that club representatives like Petr Cech have seen the reaction outside, it's ridiculous. Let's have a look. Glenn Murray, Nottingham Forest, ex-Brighton player. I find it absolutely incredible that they thought they would announce this and we would wave them off into the sunset. It's incredible behaviour. I actually feel sorry for the clubs that have agreed, and by that I mean the people, the city, and the community. This seems a very American concept, and they just don't understand the sport and how much it means in Europe to the fans. Breaking news on TalkSport: all 12 clubs are meeting to discuss disbanding the Super League. We've got our ball back. Kevin De Bruyne. Okay, this is Kevin De Bruyne, Man City, but I think this is what's really gotta do it. Let's have a look. This man comes out of a little town out of Belgium, dreaming of playing at the highest stage possible. I've represented the Belgian, German, and English leagues, and I've also proudly represented my country. I've worked and competed against everybody trying to win the ultimate. But the most important word in this is competing. With all events that's been happening the last few days, maybe this is a good moment for everybody to come together and try and work for a solution. We know this is a big business, and I know I'm part of this business, but I'm still a little boy who just loves to play football. It's not about a certain entity in this case, it's about football over the whole world. Let's keep inspiring the next generation of footballers and keep the fans dreaming. Says it all, really. That's damning. Kevin De Bruyne. Right. It was bordering on amateur by Pat Nevin. They didn't get the expertise in their boardroom. Some of the things I was looking at were bordering on amateurish, and I was trying not to get too angry too early. When you look at Barcelona and Real Madrid's business model, they're stuck as far as I can tell. They're trying to fight against Manchester City and PSG. The kickoff has been delayed at Stamford Bridge. It's now an 8:15 kickoff. I appreciate a lot that's going on right now, but a bit more. The game tonight, Chelsea has been put back by 15 minutes. Don't overestimate Petr Cech's position on the board to get us out of this mess. Chelsea, Man City reportedly putting out Super League. With any luck, tomorrow there'll only be Man United, Real Madrid left. Then they can play each other every week. Wouldn't that be exciting? Who cares that they're pulling out now? That makes them all cowards and a disgrace. They all have point deduction. God, it's just unfolding. I'm back from walking the dog. Oh yeah, Chelsea pulled out, Man City pulling out, Atletico and Barca on the verge of pulling out, and all 12 clubs are going to have a meeting to discuss disbanding the Super League format idea. Oh my God, the comment section on the Chelsea pullout is huge. sod what he's got. Let's see what Dan Rowan, a journalist I can't stand, but he's written this. Chelsea and Man City are preparing to withdraw from the European Super League. Efforts to leave have come just 2 days after both were announced as two of the 6 English clubs to sign up to the controversial competition. The ESL has been widely criticised since being announced on Sunday. 1,000 fans plus have gathered outside Stamford Bridge, and the protests turned ugly at times to protest their involvement. Chelsea and City were part of English football's Big Six alongside Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United and Tottenham to sign up to the league. In total, 12 European clubs announced their intentions to form the breakaway league, which they hope would establish a new midweek competition. It was condemned by football authorities and government ministers in the UK and across Europe by UEFA and league and associations. Chelsea were the first club to indicate they would not press ahead with their plans, and City followed soon after. Chelsea and City were not drivers of this plan. They just feared living left behind. It's not how easy it is or how binding the contracts are. Clearly, something changed on Tuesday, whether it was the backlash, the worldwide condemnation, or the political pressure, or whether players have had their say. Pat Nevin, I'm not even mildly surprised it didn't look like Chelsea wanted to get on that train, but they didn't want to be left at the station. I don't think these clubs were prepared for anything. This seems like utter panic from a set of clubs. I think it's the first break that falls first, and then we're all back to some normality. Chelsea wanted to move to a stadium a few years ago. The fans weren't having it. The club insisted instead of pushing it through, said we were wrong. They can change, they can adapt. It's gone now. It's dead in the water. It's big because the other clubs will look a bit silly without them now. Brilliant news. Well done, Chelsea. Now the other 5 to do the right thing and follow suit. Serious. A Florentino Perez masterclass crumbles in 2 days. Madrid we wound up the most corrupt entity in sports history, let alone football. As will they all now, the owners are still culpable, though, let no one forget that. Lasts about as long as one of their managers. Give it 24 hours, the whole thing will have collapsed then by good. Clubs need to grow a set and not cave into a little bit of criticism from a few fans. Okay. Withdrawal can only be a good thing, but this will tarnish their reputation for years to come. Good riddance, more teams to follow suit. If it's true, it shows the owners have not expected the level of backlash. They must operate in a vacuum if they're surprised by the reaction. Get in, Chelsea. You shouldn't have signed up, but at least this shows a modicum of respect for the fans, which is only Liverpool win up on it. Protest work. I think it was lack of support across the board, threats of political and sporting sanctions, and a nice amount of legal wrangling that persuaded Chelsea rather than some fans on the ground. Let's face it, clubs haven't paid much heed to fans for a very long time now. The caliber of owners is so poor that it takes a Russian oligarch to be the first to see common sense. Don't let it be the end of it. Push for reform and fan ownership model like Germany, so they can never try this crap again. Should never have signed up in the first place, but I'm glad to see sense-based prevailed, and we can reputation. Well done to everyone who kicked up an almighty row about this. Fan palette, ex-players, fans, all stand together. Dominoes effect. Dominoes all happening now. It's all kicking off. I'm back from Chelsea are out. Yeah, we know that. Thank God we left the Super League. I want to stay in the Premier League and win an FA Cup and become the Premier League champions. They still deserve a points deduction. People are saying they deserve to be still thrown out and deserve points deductions. That could still yet happen. If Spurs are last to pull out, do we get to keep the trophy? The decision was taken by owner Roman Abramovich and the Chelsea board after witnessing negative global reaction to the Super League. There was a fear it could do reputational damage to a club which prided itself on anti-Semitism and community work, but they're still a racist club with their fan base. Let's not forget that. I'm not holding any punches here. Questions were raised internally as whether the fans would respond to the club if it continued with the proposal, which has gone down so badly. The decision was made earlier on Tuesday before protests started outside Stamford Bridge, so that's why Petr got involved, I think. It was understood that Chelsea was not a main driver of the Super League idea, but it had to go on board when it was presented late last week. So Man City are out, Chelsea are on the way out. Who's next? There's more coming in. I'm not going to make excuses for Chelsea. This is Pat Nevin, former Chelsea legend, by the way, and 5 Live radio presenter. They got it wrong. But the best thing to do when you realise something is hold your hand up and get out of it. Chelsea might pat themselves on the back and say, we destroyed this. It's so obvious that it's going to fall apart now. The Chelsea owner and staff will be forgiven because of what they've done, but it might take a while. I'm not so sure. So there's still more coming in. Yeah, it's blown up big time. What teams are replacing? They're having a meeting as soon as possible to discuss disbanding. The dominoes are falling quickly. The fact we had no statements or press conferences from any of the owners, apart from Florentino Perez and Agnelli at Juventus, tells you something. That Real Madrid, I think Man United were key drivers in this, and Juventus. They were the three big drivers in this. But it's all gone pig tong very quickly. These clubs shouldn't be appeased or bargained with if the ESL plans crumble. They should be punished with European bans and points deductions. Oh God, there's more coming out. Can you disband a league that hasn't even produced its first fixture list or played its first match? So this is a fan from Sheffield. These clubs shouldn't be appeased if the ESL plans crumble. They should be punished with European bans and point deductions. Action also needs to be taken to make sure this never is taken too. Let's not forgive and forget so quickly. They knew what they were doing and chickened out when they saw the backlash. If the others stick with it, don't bank on seeing Chelsea not joining the bandwagon later. There's more coming through all the time. Mark Goldbridge said he would be happy relegated as long as he gets his club back. Absolutely. No action off the table of a breakaway group from the government. Let's have a look. Chelsea are the only club with no debt. They're actually in positive money, ironically. 16.6 million in positive money. Tottenham have over nearly 600 million pounds worth of debt. Man United have 450. So Tottenham Hotspur have 591.8 million in debt, officially declared. Man United have 452.7 million in debt. Juventus 336.7 million in debt. Inter Milan 278.6 million in debt. Barcelona 274.2 million in debt. Real Madrid 146.8 million in debt. Atletico Madrid 95.9 million. So okay, Atletico were in a bit more trouble than I realised. AC Milan have 89.7 million debts. Arsenal are still paying off their stadium. They've still got 66.3 million in debt. Man City have actually got debt of 44.8 million. So if they were a standalone club, they would be wound up. Absolutely. Liverpool have not made their debts or profits available. And Chelsea are the only one in profit at 16.6 million in profit. So that tells you only one club admitted they were in profit, and it was the club I wasn't expecting. This is an interesting comment that's just come up on this thread. So these football clubs citing decrease in revenue as the reason to break away. Have they considered maybe cutting wages or living within their means? Oh right, that's only something Portugal are asked to do. That said, I'm more surprised that football fans are surprised this has happened. The game has been nothing but greed for decades now, and you kept applying your money into it. You look at the sheer amount of debt that these clubs have, and there's no wonder Perez is saying we're all ruined. No, Mr. Perez, your club and others are responsible for paying players 500 grand a week or more. No wonder your club is screwed. Football needs salary cap along the lines of rugby, and for goodness sake, get rid of agents' fees. You might actually see some financial sense then. Spurs in the Super League is like me walking to the Crucible putting 50p on the table. That is the best comment I think I've ever heard. And then the best response is, they're still trying to jump the queue. Quite good. The reason why clubs like yours, President Functions, are all ruined is because you pay too much money to acquire your players and then you pay them too much wages. It all has to end sooner or later, and the ESL will make sooner than you. It's the lack of condition that rankles most, I believe. How they can be excited when you're at the end of the season and place relegation, but safe in the knowledge you can't go down. While President fans give a shit. This is all a direct result of parasite football agents and obscene wages. Let them go. Honestly, hope there's no such begging to stay. And then say any player who signs a new contract with the Super League team is bad from all other conditions, including internationals. It's all about the Chinese and American audience. The few fans in favour of this won't realise that their team won't be playing down the road anymore. They'll be playing like half their games on the other side of the world. Makes use of government time. Bojo's actually nothing else to do with anymore to get on with. Sky, UEFA and FIFA are the upstanding bastions of the footballing world. Oh, wait. Hey, footy fans, your sport industry was stolen from decades ago. You've been taken from mugs for years, £80 a ticket plus all of it to by paraphernalia, and you still think it's the wrong man working that sport. Ho, ho, ho. Let them play in their Super League, but remove them from English football competitions. In any case, why are two average sides such as Spurs and Arsenal part of the so-called Big Six, two very poor sides who would never compete in it anyway? The whole thing's a joke. It doesn't even go ahead. The sixth division. This is like rubbish. All these so-called fans come as demanding clubs by the best players. So sat around that with a few games. The last year has shown that money isn't everything in life, but the top 1% decide to apply big money to everything for the sake of their own greed or exploit the lives of the 99% of the process. The Super League process is one of those many examples of this. We need to energise the population of this issue and seek to overthrow the greed for our own good. I hope the ESL gets scrapped, driven by greed and leaving fans with soulless clubs, back fan ownership. There seems to be a sad inevitability about this. The younger generation wants to stream everything on their phones instantly. The greedy owners realise this, and we're looking at this global audience rather than the fans which these clubs are built on. Relegate and see their debt grow. Right, more fans. Said it yesterday, but even if any of these clubs withdraw, the whole thing gets cancelled. They should still be punished. And even considering the idea, dock and points, fine and whatever, they threaten the integrity of the league, and that should not be forgotten. Another fan, if accurate, and if they do pull out, it'll be Domino's with Liverpool or Barcelona next, I guess. Unfortunately, the club that stands to lose the most of this is Juventus. Thomas Tuchel, the Chelsea manager on Sky Sports. I don't know anything. I spent the last 45 minutes on the bus waiting to come to the stadium. I know I'm in a super competitive club and I trust the club. It's all about competition now, and this is what everyone feels watching our team. We were giving everything in the Champions League, the FA Cup. We left our heart and soul on the pitch. I'm not aware of any of the politics. I don't know enough, and I trust the club that they take decisions into consideration. We embrace competitive sport. It's annoying and frustrating. From Monday, we want to build the momentum and atmosphere and being ready. It was not our fault. We've had to accept. How can these clubs now expect to be involved with future discussions regarding Champions League reforms? They have no credibility. As for repercussions, I dock enough points for next season, so it's a challenge to stay up. Independent journalist at Stamford Bridge, Miguel Delaney. I was outside Stamford Bridge and ready to take a picture of the protest, and a massive cheer went up as if a goal had been scored. I was wondering what had happened, and I got a message. The scene was electric as any goal that I've been seen scored. Ultimately, it's what football is about, and that community spirit and celebration was electric. You can only presume that backlash is far beyond what the anticipated expected. So much damage has already been done, though. As a City fan, I'm still massively disappointed in the actions of my club. Massive respect for City and Chelsea. Find some good news. Let's hope Arsenal, United, Spurs, and my team Liverpool join in the drawing. Another fan. It's staying home. It's staying home. It's staying home. Football staying home. More. I don't agree with the stance that there should be leniency on players and managers of the so-called Big Six. I agree that none of them are to blame for this, but the players aren't also to blame when a club enters into administration or breaches financial fair play rules, and points deductions and relegation still happen in most cases. The clubs being relegated and players being banned from international competition makes them all handy transfer requests to move to non-traitorous clubs so much better. These clubs want to break away to generate more income. They're almost losing money and in debt. They see this as a way to dig themselves out of a hole. I think it shows how football is run overall needs re-evaluating. Brighton player saying it's about the fans and the culture. So it's all falling apart very, very quickly. All falling apart. Oh, wait. There's more coming through. Brighton boss Graham Potter talking to Sky Sports. Very pleased. Our feelings have been known. It stands against everything we know as football. It would be wrong to create something with no threat of relegation and you want the chance to play in Europe. If we are in a place where it is stopping, that is fantastic news. Sometimes a fan can be thought of as a consumer, and we're in danger of that being the case. Credit to the fans for making their case, and the quicker we get back to playing for points, the better. What next? These teams are still massively burdened by the debt they themselves created. Leagues are going to miss out on money if they relegate them or ban them altogether. More's coming through now. Another fan. I've no pity or sympathy for Barcelona, Juventus, or Real Madrid for their financial predicament. They keep spending a ridiculous amount of money on transfers and also insane salaries on players weekly. Spend what you earn. Simple. Another fan. The fact they have to prepare something to withdraw suggests that they were fully signed up. This must not go without severe punishment. Big picture was the start. Now this. It will continue if they're not held accountable for trying to destroy football. Another fan. Damage has been done. It's clear that the Glazers have zero credibility when it comes to having the best interest of clubs and fans. It's disgrace. It's shoddy leadership. It's coming through all the time. What next? I still think there's going to be repercussions. Massive repercussions. The fact that we've heard nothing from other clubs. Atletico Madrid pulling out. We've heard that rumor now for about an hour. In the last hour, it's all fallen apart. It appears that Chelsea have made the decision to withdraw earlier today when the Premier League meeting was taking place. Leagues will lose money, but at the same time, the sports have to survive. I mean, Serie A relegated Juventus out after the match fixing scandal. Serie A is still a league. AC Milan were docked points for the match fixing scandal as well. They were punished. Serie A survived, admittedly weakened, but it survived. Inter won the Champions League in that period. So make of that what you will. In all honesty, I think there's going to be further repercussions from this. What I do believe quite passionately is that FIFA and UEFA should be coupled with corruption, have been coupled with corruption for years. I hate the organisations, but it's the best we have. Yes. I'm no fan of FIFA or UEFA either, or football governance in general. I'm very critical of the FA, the Premier League and the EFL, have been for years. But what I can say is that they are the best we have. They have to reform. I think Serafin and Infantino are better than Blatter and Platini. I think, especially Serafin. He strikes me as the right guy to be in charge of UEFA, Alexander Serafin. I think the FA's got its own issues, but yes, Serafin seems like a decent person. Infantino, on the other hand, has been being bad for the sport since he talked about before. Infantino is part of the old guard at FIFA. He replaced Blatter for Infantino. They are born a valley apart in Switzerland, so they're pretty much neighbours in Switzerland. But I think Serafin in charge of UEFA is taking UEFA in the right direction. He came out and said we're not doing another pan-European tournament like Euro 2020 was planned to be. Obviously, the Champions League, Europa League final stadiums are 3 years in advance. I think they're going to look at where they host finals from now on. Obviously, the new format with Europe, the new third-tier competition and the changes to the Champions League happened under his watch. But planning for the new third-tier competition was in place before he was appointed. I think the Champions League reorganisation, it may be tweaked further. It may change again. I can see the new format not going down well, and people are very critical of it, and rightly so. And I think UEFA would have to listen to that criticism, seeing what's happened in the last 48 hours, especially in the last 3 hours. From what we understand, Chelsea were planning to pull out at the beginning of today, before the Premier League meeting took place. When the Premier League released their statement, the 14 clubs that met, excluding the 6 that decided to break away, they stated all options on the table, including expelling them from the Football League and Premier League. So that has to be taken into consideration. The fact that players at clubs, managers, ex-players have been highly critical of this planned European Super League from the announcement to now. It was always on the back burner, but people were like, it's a power grab. It's a bargaining chip with UEFA. These clubs trying to pressurise UEFA into revenue sharing and other such. Let's see what else is breaking now. If you just join this page expecting Chelsea Brighton to kick off in 10 minutes, you can go make a cup of tea. The game has been put back by 15 minutes. That's boring. And nothing else is coming through now with the European Super League. So the fact that they've had to prepare documents to get themselves out of the situation says that it was all signed off. I honestly believe the initial Super League idea was more a negotiating tactic. As time has obviously gone on, it's become a policy of these clubs. There was discussions before Christmas to do with this European Super League format and the restructuring of the Premier League to suit the European Super League, which was brought forward by Man United and Liverpool. That was voted down, I believe, in December, quite publicly, and very quickly dropped from the agenda. They've resurfaced quite quickly. To me, there were flaws from it from the start. When UEFA then responded by saying we would, ban players from competing, ban clubs, they will be expelled from leagues and competitions. The fact that Florentino Perez said we want to start by as early as August, that's a very quick time to plan and set up a competition which has no governing body, which has no fixed amount, and with no full team list of 20 teams. There were only 15 founder members, and very, very quickly, Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, and PSG pulled out. Which then says to me this is where Chelsea and Man City were already wavering. But the Germans, they needed the Germans involved in order for it to work, and the Germans just didn't want to play ball. That's where I think it breaks. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Ken Bates nearly bankrupted Chelsea before Abramovich, and Bruce Buck came in and Man City were nothing before the Sheikh Mansour board. Yeah, poor ownership. Ed Woodward has resigned as chairman of Man United. Oh my God. Ed Woodward's gone. I think this is a sign that United fans can actually get their club back for the first time in 17 years. Ed Woodward has resigned. That is something I was not expecting. He signed off on this. And the calls for the Glazers and FSG to go are going to grow. We had Hicks and Gillette at Liverpool as well. So Liverpool have had, this is their second set of American owners. The Glazers have never been popular with the fan base at Man United because of the debt the club has incurred under their ownership. They had money. Yes, it does matter if Joel Glazer is still in charge. Because Ed Woodward is the Glazers' man. Okay, here's some more stuff that's coming through from fans. It was never going to happen, let's be honest. An announcement hours before UEFA posted their new regs, a major championship which has no TV broadcast in place. Who would dare go even near it? No sponsors, no fans, and a cost of 10 billion. In addition, the players and managers themselves were not even told about it in advance, just very advised posturing by the big clubs to get a larger share of the pot, and it's hurt. I think FIFA should seize the moment to remind us of their expanded World Cup plans, much maligned by 24 teams from across the world to qualify to compete. Not saying so bad now, is it? But if it is true that Ed Woodward has gone, that is momentous. He's been heavily criticised for some of the footballing decisions at Man United in the last 7-8 years. Our Twitter's exploded. Twitter was blown up. The fact that Ed Woodward has gone, I think the Glazers are in trouble. Big trouble. I don't think the politicians back down either. I think they've seen the anger across Europe, and I think, yeah, Fenway Sports Group as well. I think they will look at themselves quite closely now and go, okay, we've misread the room badly, very badly. But yes, Edward would going. His position's been untenable for a long time. Quite frankly, his decisions over the footballing side. He's not a footballing man. He's a businessman. Yes, he's made Man United a lot of money. They've still got a lot of debt, and I honestly don't know what. Let's have a look at Twitter. Let's go on Twitter, because this is going to be interesting. Quite frankly, let's have a look. Let's get on Twitter. Let's have a look. Mobile Twitter. Let's have a look. I don't install the app. Right, let's have a look. Latest tweets. Ed Woodward has resigned. Ed Woodward's gone. It's confirmed. Sky News understand that Downing Street's plans for White House style news briefings have been scrapped and Allegra Stratton has become the spokesman for boring. Wow. Ed Woodward has resigned, yeah. Even Brian Moore, a rugby person, he's a very intelligent man. At best, it betrays a complete lack of judgment and or research, not to mention fortitude. I'm pleased it looks like a non-starter, but the clubs involved will be tarnished for some time. Paul Hayward. Let's go steady with the praise of clubs forced by public outrage to pull out the Super League. Thank goodness it's collapsing, but the intent was there until it became a PR disaster. Man City have withdrawn. Confirmed. Chelsea and Man City were not drivers of this plan. Fear being left behind. We know about that. Yeah, Edward has been confirmed. Edward was gone. Right, let's have a look. Let's go. Yeah, we know about Chelsea preparing documents. Let's refresh the feed. This is madness. Absolute madness. Watford beat Norwich, so they have to wait to be champions. Yeah, it's gone mad. Absolutely mad. Analytics. How do I find the trending page? Let's have a look. Twitter. Wow, that's big news. City pulled out yet. Either Milan clubs will have to wait and see on that, but it's full like a deck of cards. Bear in mind, Italy's an hour ahead, so it's like 9 o'clock Italian time. They'll probably make an announcement in the morning. Let's have a look. Oh, wow. It's all talk of a massive respect for Chelsea City. They've tried to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, and now they're backing out like cowards. Ban on 12 for next year's Champions League. See the likes of Everton, West Ham, Leicester, Leverkusen, and Sevilla get the benefit of sheer grid of these clubs. Many are asking how these teams can be forgiven without punishment, losing points with wrong decision making. Simply, these 6 clubs are in the Premiership in financial terms. Losing them all other teams are simply part of a weak or poor league. Good luck. Edward has resigned. It is confirmed. I can confirm that the Brighton players are indeed warming up in t-shirts saying that's what for the fans. I think we'll see that principal in action tonight. Oh, it's exploding. It's exploding. Right, let's go to the live. All change and quickly. So they shut the live down text at 6. They've come back on. This live text closed down at 6 p.m. But a lot can happen in a couple of hours nowadays. That's 2 hours ago. What we know is Chelsea are preparing to exit. Man City and Milan are totally out of the proposed competition. Yeah, so in the space of 2 hours, Man City withdrew, Chelsea are close. And then so it's gone bang. Yeah, bang very quickly. Edward's gone. It's bananas. Oh, I don't think it's over either. But I'm going to call this a stream. I've been going for 3.5 hours. And I will do an update. Well, I'll do another stream tomorrow evening, or another video tomorrow evening giving an update, because this has exploded rapidly, massively. I've got to do my dinner as well. But thank you very much for obviously taking part in the last 3.5 hours of our lives. Seriously, in 2 hours, it's gone from they're all part of this to it's all gone Pete Tong. And yes, tomorrow is the 4th anniversary of the channel, so yeah, we'll be doing a little video on that, maybe a little live stream. But yes, it's been a great fun 4 years, but the last 3.5 hours has been hectic, and some of it unexpected. I didn't expect it to collapse so quickly. Juve main guy has gone as well. This is ridiculous. Heads are rolling. The brains trust behind this are resigning all over the place. I can't see how any chief executive at any of these clubs can maintain their position, or any club president or board chairman. The owners as well, I think they're in trouble. I think there's more to come on this, but for now, thank you very, very much for taking part. I appreciate it, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon. Come on. Come on. Don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Please don't crash.